is in your eco with no threats.
I just don't think this type of strategy works to the Malians against Delhi on these type of spawns. Like, this type of strategy maybe has a chance of working if you go for like a double gold back spawn, but this was one forward and one to the side, right? There's nothing defensive, nothing safe here, and now there's nowhere to hide. This is undeniable. Definitely starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed, but the men-at-arms are being ignored. That's the bigger problem here. So, like, the way you're looking at this fight, Cat is just giving maximum DPS to the heavily armored boys.
Well, I mean, Demu has to commit to this fight because he's got 10 villagers.
Oh my god, oh my god.
Building a keep behind this.
He's going for it.
Cat's just going to go for the deny, but in the meantime, isn't going to lose a lot.
What is that one villager that just hung around, like, committed to the duty here? So, good push, Cat.
And Vill's going down by the droves.
So he'll get the castle up, but the price is going to be insanely high here. We're talking about probably a 25 villager lead at the tail end of this. Sacred Site timer was paused temporarily. It still has 8 minutes to go. And Cat should have the eco advantage now to just reset and come with siege.
Quickly.
Do you care, though? Because you have a second wall behind this. And a third wall behind.
Dare I say a fourth? Wait, this is actually kind of good for Demu. It depends on how the siege war goes, though. I mean, if the keeps do go down, though, Demu has invested a lot of resources into this. Oh, wait. What?
Oh, no.
Oh. Wait, he's not looking, though. Okay, he looks.
To
Wait,
repair.
he went to repair. Oh my gosh, I'm panicking. I'm panicking.
His economy's fine here, especially when you consider
this
is all about siege. Yeah.
This push is about to happen, though. Demu doesn't have the numbers. Only 5 against 8. It's just not enough Springholds.
Initial opening fire looked good. A little bit of overkill coming up from Cat. Men-at-arms are going to start leaking in here. But it looks like Cat's raw number advantage will hold up. The Trips, however, what? The Mango!
The Vills are getting pulled. The Mango's on the north.
The Mangoes are doing it all right now. All the trebuchets are gone!
I'm speechless. He won the siege war. The Bill pull comes in. 20 seconds on the clock. I don't even think they get there.
The Mangoes are still alive.
They don't even get there.
Dimu still has the Mangoes. If he just targets this big clump of villagers,
well,
we're going to hear a lot of
castles. The keep is going to do enough. The boiling oil comes out after Bill's almost dead. They go for the kill on this. They're going to go for the dive. Demu actually has almost no units to defend this. It's just going to be the keep and the siege weapons now.
I mean, he's not even pulling his villagers. The wild part is Dimu isn't even pulling his villagers to just stand on site.
Landmark, though.
This is scary. He's cut off from home. Demos.
Or is it scary for...
I know, it's scary for Dimu. He's running into the demos!
Oh my god. That's a huge hit.
Return fire coming in.
He lost his whole navy.
Dimu's dead. He's going to lose everything here. What a
turn!
what
a chaotic fight.
Oh my god, the timing on that Cat. He even pivoted right side to catch him on the retreat. It looked like this was going to be a Dimu-favored game, but that strike right there resets him. Cat now out of position with his own Springholds, but Dimu lacks the demo count to now punish that.
Demu's fishing boats as military here.
Yeah.
So Cat has a massive
chaos.
Military advantage.
Yeah, it makes it absolute chaos to keep track of. Now, if he doesn't take out the docks, demos are still a problem, and Dimu did just queue up 3 more. But the demos from Cat, it's an overwhelm again!
No arrow ships. No arrow ships at all from it. Oh, they just spawned just a little too late.
Return fire comes out, but it's going to reset Cat. I don't think he cares, though. Damage once again done. It's now 3 times the Springholds to that of which Ben has. Those aren't moving.
If they were, that fleet could have gone cooked. Look at that. That fleet is cooked. Look at can we look at the HPs of Cat's fleet right now?
He'd rob you.
That is some low. Everybody is hurt there. Which means I actually think Demo has more HP here.
Demo?
He's pushing in. The demos sneaking through. That's a lot of demos.
He likes
a lot of demos.
He doesn't even care. There's not enough archer ships here. Goes in. This could hit the fishing as well. Deeper and deeper we go.
Oh.
He needs more. He needs a lot more. There it is.
Yikes.
Close here, surely.
Yeah, but this. How many times have we seen a fight right in this concave that Demo is just won?
We'll have to see.
The upgrades should be coming in potentially.
Detonation good.
The demos are just waiting in the back. Oh my gosh, Cat has a huge fleet of demos. They're coming forward.
Yeah, but wait, they're just A-clicking into one target here. Archer ship's clearing up a lot of them, but a few are going to leak through.
There's enough.
That's it.
Oh
they're gone.
Gosh.
Everything is gone.
Everything dies.
Demo reaches in.
Well,
That's a big sinker. I mean, you say
Eric
well.
goes down.
2 Grand Galleys left.
If there's no Perix left.
Welcome back to
I mean,
Master of Realms. It's time for our 3rd series of the day. Of course, all the way through, we'll be saying farewell to people we just said toodaloo to good old B. But now we must decide if we're going to get more Europeans or more NA people. Obviously, we don't need to ask which side each of you are going to be on. But we do have to talk about the stats a little, Tim, right? Like, looking at recent performances, there's been an interesting pattern with Puppypaw and Lucifron when they face off. Year-to-year switches, where 1 year, Puppypaw will be dominant, the other Lucifron will be dominant. Now, since the beginning of 2023, it's been heavily Lucy favored at 81% win rate with their matchups. The question mark, though, is Lucy ready for the newfound Puppypaw? Because right now, I think it's fair to say this Canadian is a podium-level player.
Oh, I'm going to tell you, I think Puppypaw is playing out of his mind. Honestly, I mean, like for some of these tournaments, I always want to see some Puppypaw series because I remember this was, I mean, I feel like an AoE4 boomer at this point, being a day one player, but like I remember seeing Puppypaw and Wham in War Chief Club a long time ago. You know, being in War Chief Club, starting to get their feet out from under them and play some good games, and then all of a sudden they're making these tournaments. Right, and they're making good runs in these tournaments, even in qualifiers, that kind of stuff. And then in the finals, we see them in the Elite Classic. And now it might just be one paw of a puppy, but it's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, it's actually interesting to think back to the way he began Crackety, right? Like, I remember this kid when he was a filthy Mongol outpost rusher and a filthy Chinese outpost rusher. Agent sheep activities, average game time of 12 minutes. And now look at this guy. It feels like he's mastered every element of the game.
Yeah, you say like massive outpost rusher back in the day. Maybe Puppypaw secretly was pilot elf all along, but yeah, Puppypaw he's come a long way. He's come a long way, and now he's here. He's now, I want to say, like firmly established in the top 5 when it comes to players. And yeah, I mean this is his chance now. This is his time to shine against Lucifron. As you said, having a negative win rate against him so far, maybe now is gonna be his redemption arc.
Yeah, because we've got a highlight on the Lucifron side of things to end for Tim. We're looking at a guy who I think he'd admit he hasn't been playing his best Age of Empires 4 recently. You know, there's question marks out of the group stage, how well it's going to go. Is this the Lucifron now fully fixed, similar to what we saw from Vortex, the complete turnaround? Is this going to be the guy who can make a deep run, or are we still looking at a guy who maybe isn't putting in the time he's known for? Maybe he's got divided attention between a Stormgate and Age of Empires.
You know, I'll tell you what, with Lucifron, and just because him and Vortex, I should say, because they're 2 of the best RTS players that we have on this planet. So just because of how they're able to go into these different games and be like, oh yeah, there's a tournament for this new game coming out. I think I'm going to win that real quick. Let me just win that. Yeah. And then I'll come back. Right. So, you know, with Lucifron, I feel like when it comes back to Age of Empires 4, it's like riding a bike, baby. You know, I mean, you get your reps in, you get another week or 2. You're on a really good tournament that's actually kind of set for people like Lucifron and Vortex because of how good they are on micro. You know, for how good they're able to be on water. For people like the Spanish brother, I know we talked about Marie Lord, we talk about Beastie. I know there's a lot of big names out there, chat. I get it, but don't sleep on these guys. You know, this is a tournament made for them.
I mean, that's the thing. They're known for their iterations, their experimentation that leads to domination. But can they dominate against a player of Puppypaw's caliber, performing out of his mind early on in 2024? It's time to find out. The 3rd quarterfinals of Master of Realms, Puppypaw versus Lucifron. We kick off on Gorge.
Here we go. Spawning the color red, we got Puppypaw playing as the Roost here, and Gorge on the other hand side, Lucifron playing as the Mongols. And what is that? Look at the opening. Lucifron immediately starts off with a stable, no immediate Uvu. Instead, we're getting that stable into an additional scout. That is something that we probably don't see often.
You know, I'll tell you, this is what I love watching when I see Lucifron and I see Vortex playing in these games, because they usually practice with each other. They usually practice behind closed doors, so we never know what's going to go on. And just having that stable out to get that scout means, you know, your town center, you don't have to worry about losing a villager. right? And then you're going to be able to try to get some of these deer packs. But Puppy Paw did find it. We all know this is the Roos RNG bounty game in Dark Age, trying to find those deer packs and trying to get the 70 gold that all of those deer packs do provide. And Puppy Paw is going to be able to get one of his enemies over here. And, you know, when you talk about a map like Gorge and Crackety, as when you're playing as the Roos, your deer could have a propensity to spawn here. You know, we see them all the way in the corner. For Puppy Paw, you see one of his friendly deer packs, I should say, all the way on that western corner. So if you're a player, because Gorge is in the ranked map pool right now, if you're a player and you're either trying to deny Roos or you're trying to play as Roos, scout to the edges because you might miss something.
Yeah, I mean, right now, that's the issue here for Lucifer, right? Like, all the deer spawn on the same side, and Puppy Paw looks like he's going to be getting away with 3 of the 4 deer spots, and you definitely don't like seeing that, especially when you already invested into an additional scout in order to try and keep up with the Roos. Same time, Puppy Paw with a scout, also slightly ahead of the car. Movement speed arrow gets popped, might be able to get that sheep before Puppy Paw does, and indeed is able to at least secure himself another sheep, but another sheep is going to go over to Puppy Paw. Might be even 2. Oh, Lucifer. No, never mind. That sheep is converted by the Gur. Kind of hard to see with yellow.
And that's what, you know, that's what feels great when you're playing as Roos, because when you're making a couple scouts like this, and usually you end up making 3, you're always going to have sheep, right? You're always going to find them. At least you'll get a couple of them. So you're never like, oh, I only found 2 sheep this game. And then you have to go out and get berries and get all of that kind of stuff. Roos kind of negates that, you know? And just because of the fact that they need to get those deer packs, you can see he's getting over that pivotal 200, 210 kind of soft spot. So when he does start to go up, and will be going up with the Kremlin, I would imagine, very soon, then starts to go on wood, he's going to have the ability to get wheelbarrow. And he's got that wheelbarrow queued, and he's going to be able to get that going.
Yeah, Puppy Boy just needs a single wolf kill now in order to be able to get to that 250 bounty mark. Lucifron, it's gonna make it hard for him though. There's the wolf, they're fighting about it right now. Silvertree is going up for Lucifron, Kremlin going up for Puppy Paw. Khan also fighting off against some of the wolves.
And, I mean, we talked about that wolf over on the western side. That's quite the important wolf. I mean, that wolf over there, it just means that 225 to 250, Puppy Paw pulls a second scout to make sure he's able to get it. What's really something you got to watch out for, that's exactly what Lucifron kind of got baited into doing, just because each of those scouts hit for 3. You got to make sure if you're on that odd number, Lucifron might have been able to snipe it, but not going to be able to do that. Hits that 250, goes with that Kremlin up. He already has villagers on wood. I would imagine he's going to add some villagers on stone for another town center. I mean, we didn't really have the chance to talk about it just because of the Roos bounty game that's in Dark Age, but this matchup for Roos, you'll love it. You'll love to see it.
Yeah, second GC also going to be coming in for Puppy Paw. Definitely knows that on this map especially, like, it's going to be kind of tough for Mongols to keep their trade defended. The markets are so far in the middle. Your traders are going to be walking across half the map for that one, like throughout the middle part of the map, not just along the back line.
Yeah, that's what really helps too, just making sure some of your resources. I mean, the Kremlin, that's something a lot of people don't really appreciate out of the Roos, because it's a 5,000 hit point outpost and it hits like a truck. Right, so just make sure that you're going to be a little bit defensive, and especially when you're playing against a civilization like the Mongols, who like to do things like tower rush, who like to get into your face really early into the game. You have that Kremlin, you're not going to be able to do that.
Are you ready to play Bet the Bounty? I'm guessing we're about 300 now. It's kind of sad now we have to know the bounty at all times. It's kind of tough to like play that game anymore. But yeah, 300 bounty for Puppy Paw definitely has to be feeling great. Especially since his opponent invested into... Yeah, okay, now we can play the game. Especially since his opponent needs to invest into a stable and into an additional scout.
Yeah, I mean, that is what's really nice. You can see that difference in the economic count, right? It's pretty much even. Lucifron has a trader that's going out. And that's something, honestly, for the Mongols, I really like to play. You know, because when you're playing as the Roos, you're thinking about trying to get that town center up as quickly as possible. You know, he's going to be able to get it up in about, 5 minutes, 40 seconds. He's going to be able to start building it. He's going to go to that deer pack over there on the eastern side. But it just means you spend so much time getting wood and stone. You're not trying to do things like get military production buildings, right? So maybe Lucifron can get a couple, right? Maybe he can get a couple traders to try to get some good drop-offs, and it could be able to help him out while Puppy Paw's trying to get going. Because for trade, it feels like it's a little bit quicker. You know, having that silver tree, just getting that landmark essentially immediately, you get that quote-unquote town center to keep producing.
Yeah. TC now going up for Puppy Paw. But the first couple of or rather the first traders, already out for Lucifron. Behind this, Market is now repositioning all the way into the north corner.
And you got to think, I mean, there's got to be some good trade coming out here. And for Gorge, I feel like it's a pretty good Mongolian map just because, yeah, you have that really good trading post over there on the opposite side. But the trading post that's in the middle on the western side, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? It's not like a trading post that's going to spawn right behind your base that you're like, oh, I pretty much only have one place to go, and that's pretty much it.
Oh, this is pretty sneaky here from Puppy Paw, sending a single scout over to that market, to that silver tree. Means that Lucifron, he's not going to be able to place it. He's not going to be able to place a landmark.
Yeah. Nope. Not going to be able to get there. And actually, if he did want to go in the corner, I don't think he would have the ability to because of the deer carcasses that are there. And
he can't go quite in the corner. Villager's getting pulled as well. Could be at least there to help against that one scout.
And it's just, it's wheeling around, trying to figure out a good landscape to come out. But now that I'm pretty sure he's going to send like 1 or 2 Keshiks to try to help him. But again, it's just a little bit of delay, right? These traders are going to be just standing there being like, yeah, I mean, I got these goods, but, you know, where am I even going to put them? Now the Keshik's going to be over there trying to take down that scout. Just a little bit of time to make sure that TC gets paid off a little bit. Silver Tree's now finally going to go down. I really like, actually, that Lucifron pulled these villagers over on the north side because you get an outpost, keep those traders safe, and then you're able to get that hunt as over there on the north side as well. So pretty good play.
Scouts also going down. Puppy Paw lost another scout on the south side as well. So now he's down to just 1 scout. Puppy Paw behind this, now adding in Spearmen. 3 Spearmen out, 3 more in queue. Knights following up as well. A good old Knight and Spearman composition. Feels pretty good here for Puppy Paw right now.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, those Knights are really going to pack a punch compared to those Keshiks, right? In Feudal Age, it's 145 health for a Keshik and 190 for an early Knight. So just having the ability to make sure you get more of a quality over quantity because Lucifron is the one who's double producing, right? Out of the stable, he had a couple double production Keshiks, so he's always going to have more. Just got to make sure you get enough. You have some Spearmen. That's going to help you out too. And Lucifron, he probably is going to be a little bit more reluctant to do things like make an army composition transition because he wants the mobility of these Keshiks, right? We're seeing that pay off. The wall ends up not getting created. A couple Keshiks end up breaking through. There's about 2 or 3 that ends up getting broken through. Maybe that villager ends up going down. Spearman trying to catch him off guard and trying to take down some of these gold villagers, which he might have the ability to do.
Yeah, looks like the wall is going to get closed up. With that, Puppy Paw has secured himself a large portion of his own base. Villager at least is going to go down. Trade not really scaling that quickly at the moment. Puppy Paw is ahead overall in economy. So far, there hasn't been really a great deal of harassment yet on the economy from Lucifron. More and more Keshiks are coming out, but the Spearman numbers keep building.
Yeah, and I mean, he's doing, like, Lucifron's doing what he can, right? And that's a frustrating thing with playing against the Rus, right? Because these Keshiks are trying to find some villagers to take down. Spearmen are continuously chasing them. And if you leave them for just a second, just like Lucifron did, all of a sudden your Keshiks are at about 20 health, and then you can't really get anywhere, right? Early Knights, not necessarily taking a fight to a Keshik, but taking a fight to some of these donkeys. And it looks like one of them will end up going down. Lucifron trying to get some outposts over here on the south side, but he's got to pull some Keshiks for a little bit of reinforcements, or he's going to have a lot of dead villagers trying to build that outpost.
Keshiks are going to be coming over. Not quite enough, though. 2 Keshiks versus 2 Knights and a Spear. 2 more Keshiks are going to make their way over, though. Need to be pulled back. Looks like the Keshiks in the base of Puppy Paw from Lucifron did get taken down. Most likely another trader will end up losing its life there.
Yeah, and for Lucifron, this is kind of his time to get this under control, right? We're looking at military count right now. Puppy Paw actually sensing a little bit of urgency and pulls the boys, and by the boys, I mean the Kremlin gremlins, those little militia with their bardiches might not do might not do as much in damage to something like an infantry unit, but to cavalry, it's 6 damage plus another 6. So having those gremlins going to be able to come out and maybe take hits on some of these traders as well, just trying to harass this trader over and over again. You can see Lucifron's macro. He's at about 800 food, about 500 gold. He's going to be trying to get up to Castlade. I just don't think he's going to end up doing it. And with a trade line that's not really secure, it could be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, right now, already losing 7 of his economy units at this point in time. A couple of knights now making their way over to the market, still killing more traders. One trader just 1 hit away from going down, very likely will go down here soon. Lucifron only just now adding in archers, but up against Keshik's spear, going for the archers doesn't feel quite that good. You need a lot of archers there.
Yeah, and this is the issue, right? I mean, they both of these civilizations, both Rus and Mongols, want to have some kind of economic advantage over their opponent. For the Mongolians, they need a little bit of map control so they can do the trade. For the Rus, they could just plop their town center near their Kremlin, right? So they automatically get that economic bonus, where Lucifron has struggled for pretty much the duration of this game. Now we have some early knights in that wood line all the way in the back. Keshiks are going to try to help us a little bit, provide some reinforcements. Hopefully, we don't see Puppy Paw having any blacksmith upgrades. That town center is going to do a pretty good amount of damage. But don't look now. Lucifron had to make a lot of Keshiks. He has 5 in the queue. Puppy Paw has that similar military advantage. He's taking good trades throughout the duration of this game, so he's going to be able to get the high trade house.
Yeah, aging up now behind us with even military, but 15 economy ahead. Lucifron behind us, not even really close to being able to age up. Uwu is getting rebuilt, but I'm wondering if that's even worth it now. At this point in time, there's probably not too much stone remaining. Castle Age on the horizon now for Puppy Paw.
Yeah, and Castle Age nowhere in sight for Lucifron because he wasn't getting any food. You know, there was a little bit of deer, I think, on that northern side that he was able to get. And now, we're not even going to see how this plays out in Castle Age. I think we kind of knew already. But game number 1, going to Puppy Paw, taking that 1-0 lead and a little bit of the momentum away from Lucifron. I mean, this is just one of those situations where it's such a good matchup for Puppy Paw. You got to close this one out.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely an uphill position there from the perspective of the Mongols player, right? You can't really go for an engagement in Dark Age because guess what? Puppy Paw with the Rus, or rather the Rus in general, they don't even need to move out to gold in order to be able to get to the Feudal Age. They just get gold baseline just by hunting the animals, and you gotta play that mini game if you wanna like deny at least a little bit of the gold. If you ignore it completely, you're potentially just giving over like 200 resources over to your opponent for free. Definitely not something that you want to do, and with that, Puppy Paw is going to be able to take the lead in this set. But this next one is going to be interesting because once again, we will be seeing French on Archipelago. This time, though, up against the Chinese from Lucifron.
Yeah, we're finally seeing it. I think this is the first game we're seeing Chinese. Most of the time, Zushi, Chinese, and all that kind of stuff were banned off of this. Now, not so much. I mean, again, this is the 3rd series in a row that we're doing this on Archipelago, and French is being played. I'm waiting because Puppy Paw was one who...
It's fine. It was just the matchup earlier.
It was. But I mean, Puppy Paw is somebody that he did get a win with French on this map, correct? He was the one who kind of started to break this out.
Maybe.
Okay, great.
I don't know off the top of my head. Like I saw Louis play as well, and I saw a lot of practice games with French happening. So kind of tough to say who exactly is trying to make it popular. I think overall, when you look at the toolkit, I would personally favor Jean here because you have the option of just taking Jean, putting her in a transport ship, sending her over, and suddenly it's like, yeah, you got Jean on the other side for like pretty much free. And she's definitely like one of those units that disrupt a lot more. Also, you have the ability to consecrate your buildings in Feudal Age, so you save up even more food on your villagers, on your ships overall. And yeah, then it gets to Castle Age, and suddenly you can buff up even more buildings.
Yeah, and you know, I'm just really itching for a Jeanne d'Arc game, honestly. We haven't seen one yet today, and I haven't been able to make all my Jeanne d'Arc jokes yet. So they're just like stewing. They're in here somewhere, and I'm just waiting to kind of break them out. But for this one now, it's going to be Jeanne d'Arc minus Jeanne d'Arc, and we're going to be seeing Chinese. So it's very interesting, just because Chinese, they do have that wood economy. Again, you know, they might have to make their IO, but they still get one for that wood economy. So we're going to see how much of a prowess that the Chinese could have over the French. We're diving in to game number 2. I hope you brought your water wingies, ladies and gentlemen. Lucifron playing as the Chinese. on the western side of the map. Puppy Paw spawning in the northeast, playing as the French, obviously getting their docks up. And again, this is our third series that we're seeing Archipelago. We got to take a look at where these spawns are. Now, both of these wood lines are actually pretty safe from the shore. This is pretty good for both these guys.
Yeah, get your pool noodles out because there's a whole lot of water on this map. Looking at the spawns, there aren't any of those like little hidden ponds in the back of any of these islands, which sometimes we've seen in this generation. That's not going to be the case here today. And overall, this looks like a fairly standard, like a little bit further, like players are a little bit further away from each other kind of situation. Scout gets deleted, makes a lot of sense with China deleting that Scout.
Yeah, what's nice for the Tang Dynasty, you get that 30% vision.
You don't
right?
need that.
So, yeah,
Wait,
so you're able to...
players delete their Scouts, actually. This is like one of the rare times when you look at the military graph, it's just empty. Because none of the players have military, it's just completely empty.
It feels like something's missing. Isn't it? Like there should be a couple more alliance there, shouldn't it? You think there's a little bit of a bug going on. But yeah, both these scouts end up going down, and I mean, I get it for population space. I understand why you don't necessarily need it. Puppy Paw gonna be doing the French thing that we saw B do in the second series. You know, using some of the shoreline fish to make sure he's able to get there as quickly as possible. But let's make sure we have that feudal time that ends up paying off very well.
The question's gonna be, when is the Imperial official coming out here for Lucifer? Because especially on a map like this where you have a lot of straggler trees, you might not feel forced into making the Imperial official really early, but I think now is probably the time where you really want to like start getting in. You're now at 9 villagers, so getting 20% bonus in them. That's like having like 2 bonus villagers, and there is the Imperial official. So there we go. Imperial official just came in for Lucifer.
I mean, can we just take a second and talk about how good Kraken is at this game? Because we didn't see the town center. We didn't see what was in queue. And you're like, yeah, you should get an IO. Lord knows, 10 seconds later, that IO pops right out. So having a caster, honestly, having a caster like you just makes me look so much better. But now with that IO, gonna be able to supervise that lumber mill and making sure that you're getting 12 food every drop off instead of 10. Obviously, it means that second dock gets out quicker. It means those fishing boats get out quicker. It means you might be able to get to feudal age a little bit better, right? And get some of those military ships, whereas Puppy Paw on the other side, he's just playing stereotypical wood economy.
Also something to keep in mind, Lucifer, he's gathering shoreline fish with his villagers, which means that lots of tax is also going to accrue inside of the dock. Actually, if we take a quick look at Lucifer's dock, that's been going for a while. I'm wondering how much tax is in there, like 50, 60 gold at this point in time. Quick look at it. 69. Nice.
I got too excited. I'm so sorry. But
perfect timing on that one.
you guys couldn't see me on camera, but my arm shot up in the air for some reason. But now with getting this gold, right, from getting these gold from the taxes, it just means, yeah, you have a couple villagers on gold. You're gonna make sure you're gonna be able to get some of these ships. You know, the demo ships cost a little bit of gold, so you're gonna be able to do that. But at the same time, it just makes you get up that much quicker. And Puppy Paw now with that 400 to 200, actually at a rather good time. He's going to send 8 villagers on it. Imperial Academy coming up for Lucifer on 5 villagers. Again, this is the first time that we're seeing the Chinese on this map today. So I want to ask you, what do you think about Song Dynasty?
No.
We're just brainstorming. We're just talking. You know, no one's doing anything. I just wanted to float it out there.
Yeah, I legitimately think you can't go Song Dynasty. It's just so many resources invested into the H-Hub. For what? You're getting a Barbican? Like, sure, you're getting your villagers out every 15 seconds instead of every 20 seconds. You're able to, like, be a little bit more even with the French overall, because they're getting the villagers out a little bit quicker. But sacrificing 600 resource for that doesn't come easy, especially since the majority, or rather a good portion of your income is going to be water-based anyways.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, probably for the amount of time it would take Song Dynasty to actually pay off, number one, probably not that important. And number two, you're kind of just negating what the French does, right? Their villagers, now that they're in feudal age, are every 17 seconds. For Song Dynasty, you get them in 15, which is fine. But, you know, you're still spending 600 resources to try to negate what the French does automatically for free. So it doesn't seem very cost effective. I do agree with you. Chinese going to be going with the light junk, but don't let the name fool you. It can fire a lot of arrows and is certainly not junk Puppy Pod going to be adding a Springald ship to counteract some of that arrow ship. And again, just because Lucifron was able to get up a little bit quicker, they were kind of reasonable times. We're going to see some more fights on French waters, and if you're the Chinese player, you'll love to see it.
Warcock out immediately means Lucifron will have to back off here for the time being. Now Warjunk is going to be in queue on his side. Second dock is getting added in as well. China, they do build their ship slightly faster, so Warjunk should be out in time. Additional Imperial officials are also being added in from the landmark. Yeah, Warjunk, 10 seconds remaining, and the Warcock actually did pull back, so no damage on Lucifron's economy will be dealt here.
You know, if you're a Chinese player and you're playing on Archipelago, you're getting more of those Imperial officials out of the landmark, like you stated. Where for those Imperial officials? Obviously, one's going on the lumber camp because you need that wood economy. Where are some of these other IOs going?
Well, while they're not actively like dropping off taxes, you just have them in gold. That's like the only other like income building or like gathering building that you'll really be having here. You can't supervise stocks in the end.
Right, because as you're getting there and you're getting the max amount of IOs. I mean, again, you just have to have 4 production or economic buildings in order to supervise them, right? Just to try to make sure. And you could see the difference in that 20%. Honestly, at this point, you know, I mean, a lot of this wood Chinese are going to be at about 700, 750. Puppy Pod trying to get there, trying to get to about 700 as well. But some of the other economy that's here, like from Lucifron, he's getting 300 gold a minute to Puppy Pod's 100 some. Right, so you could see maybe he doesn't have as many villagers on wood that Puppy Paw needs, but he'll be able to allocate them in different resource nodes.
For sure. Demo ships are now also coming in from both players. Overall, looking at the economy, I'm surprised how good Puppy Paw's wood income is so far. Like being able to keep up with the Chinese here.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, and probably, and that's what I think, probably the only reason why is because he has more villagers on that resource. That's probably the only way you're going to be able to do it. And then the other resources are kind of taking a hit. Now Lucifron trying to get a demo ship up there gets destroyed near that coastal trading post. We can give you a little bit of resources if you happen to trade in that particular area. But military count now, Puppy Paw, keep it up, right? It's about 26 to 20. Lucifron does have some demo ships, a little bit more demo ships than Puppy Paw is, but Lucifron, I don't think he's at that mass right now for how close it is. I don't think he's at that mass to really take a fight near a French dock.
I'm staring. What is Lucifron doing? 5 demolition ships, 2 more in queue. That's a lot. That's a lot of demolition ships.
Hey, I mean, for the Americans in chat, it's almost 4th of July. So, you know, maybe we're just trying to get ready for it. We're trying to prepare. Hopefully, I'm not the only American who's actually in this chat. We've got some demo ships here, about 4 or 5 of them trying to, just because of Puppy Paw, he has a lot of cogs. You know, he does have a lot of war cogs, so he's going to be able to, if he does get a good explosion, he might be able to, you know? Only a couple aero ships, making sure those demos will end up getting destroyed. It looks like trying to get a little bit of a hit, not quite getting there. Some of the war junks from the Chinese end up staying alive, and now we have the march of the demo ships. A lot of these warcogs are going in there. There's only 1 or 2 galleys. It's going to end up getting picked off. I think Puppy Paw's going to have to run, and that's what he's doing over there on the south side. Some of these hulks, they're getting split in all of these different directions. A couple of them are going to end up going down, and just getting all of those, or those warcogs, excuse me, just getting all of them in all of those different directions. That could have been devastating for Puppy Paw, but I think he was able to recover.
Yeah, he mitigated a lot of the damage, but overall it's still not over for him because there's once again 4 demolition ships out and about now for Lucifron. Still more and more in queue. Arch ships are getting picked off here and there. Only 1 remaining for Puppy Paw at the moment. And it's up to 6 demo ships again.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that I feel like is because Lucifron is able to allocate a little bit more resources to gold. Number 1, number 2, he's able to get some taxes, right? Because you remember demo ships, they're 90-90, right? 90 wood, 90 gold. So getting your gold economy underway means you're going to be able to produce those so well. And it's kind of crazy because he just has those 2 aero ships, right? He just has the 2 aero ships to be able to snipe some of the 1 or 2 demos. But I feel like if Puppy Paw continues to go in this warcog situation, I don't know how many times he can make splits.
Yeah, and there's only so much shoreline to run away from. Galley though, arch ship did just get sniped out. A new one is coming out though. from Lucifer has to back off. There's 2 demolition ships getting one of the war chunks down. Still alive though, and the archer ship is getting sniped. No more archer ships for the moment. This is the time. There's a moment in time, and the demos, they connect.
Oh.
Big shots, big connections. Happy 4th of July, everybody in chat, and that is devastating loss, and GG gets called.
Just get me the hell out of here. Oh man, that's a good explosion. That's a good explosion. Look at all these shipwrecks that are going to be on the bottom of the archipelago. Oh my god. I mean, that's what happens when you're playing on water, right? The keeping your head on a swivel through all of those, right? He did such a good job on that first one, getting all of those warcogs in all of these different directions, making sure he had some kind of fleet alive. But I'm telling you, Crackety, you know this as well as I do, playing on hybrid maps or water maps. You don't look at the water for 2 to 3 seconds, your game ends.
Gonna talk about the snowballs again?
We got a snowball. No, we're not gonna talk about it again.
I'm gonna, because those snowballs, they were loaded. That wasn't just snow. There was black tar or something like that in there, and they hit hard. They hit hard. That wasn't just snow. Up to the next game though, because this is actually one of my favorite maps at the moment. Just the way that the games turn out, or rather, they started turning out ever since the Cotra got changed. I love this map. This is like mountain clearing, but it's not mountain clearing at the same time. So we're going to be seeing English versus Byzantines. And we talked about earlier, English, not bad versus Byzantines, but this is on a map. You're not going to go 2TC there. You're not going to go 2TC there. 1TC all the way. And this is going to be an interesting situation that we'll find ourselves in. English versus Byzantines on such a closed off map like Cotra. Such a small map where you're like, you can see the neighbor pretty much from your TC. You're like, oh, there he is. There's 2 woodlines between, and he's there. He's there.
It's such a fun, interesting map. But I think Cow is going to hover us over to some instant replays. Is that correct?
There we go.
Oh yeah,
We're getting an instant replay on that.
Look at this production from Cal. The only thing I need is a teleprompter to end up drawing in all of these directions now. As we're seeing some of these demo ships, we got a big load of those demo ships over there on the western side. It looks like they're trying to find some area. Puppy Paw's demo ships really not that efficacious, right?
That's the one archer ship going down, and now suddenly no more answers to the demo ships.
And then all of a sudden, the march of the demo ships come in right on those hulks. We just saw that. Ladies and gentlemen, he's trying to split up those Warcocks, but it ends up not going. And man, those cogs, they had something in there because they weren't able to turn, and they ended up going down. Now back to Socotra. Cal, thank you very much for that replay. Everyone give a shout out to Cal for having replays as the production quality of EGC TV. That's kind of fantastic, and I hope everybody has the opportunity to not only follow EGC, maybe some subs, maybe go into Surfshark. We're playing a lot of water maps, ladies and gentlemen. You want to surf safely? You go ahead and get yourself some Surfshark. Now, going into Socotra, English versus Byzantines. Now, Socotra is an AoE 2 map. You know, we've seen it at AoE 2, so let's see how it works. In AoE 4 with English and Byzantines, we're ready to dive right in to game number 3. This is such a pivotal part. This is a best of 3 now. It's a 1-1 tie. Whoever takes this one is going to have initiative for the rest of the series. This is a pivotal game 3 on a map that it's so small, Crackety, you got nowhere to run, brother.
Nowhere to run indeed, but running is not something that these players typically do. And here we go, as you said, game number 3. Byzantines for Lucifer in the color yellow against the English from Puppy Paw in the color red. This is a small, tiny map. You're right there next to your opponent, pretty much. Like you can see him. Like you see, like, hey, over there. I know where you are. I know where you are. There's nothing you can do about it. The question's gonna be how this will exactly play out. Will we actually see something like a king here? I doubt it. I actually doubt that we see king here. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I think especially, you know, playing against the Byzantines too, I feel like as English, you know, for the Byzantines, maybe something like that Western contract with the longbowmen probably aren't the best idea because the English are just going to make more longbows than you, right? And for javelin throwers, you might have the potential to make enough longbowmen, and they don't have enough javelin throwers, or maybe it doesn't even matter, right? So the English, I know I'm hyping up the English a lot, and I do usually most days, but I really feel like English has the potential to do just about anything they want.
Anything you say. Yeah, I mean, Englishes are in a I want to say fantastic spot at the moment when it comes to their strengths, right? Like they're very defensive, they're able to boom up, they're able to defend their boom. They got all the tools. They've been given all the tools that they need in order to deal with most situations, and that is actually exactly what you're looking for in a civilization. Byzantines, on the other hand, they're very good in many matchups, but not all. Definitely not all. And this is definitely one of those matchups where they can find themselves struggling with. They get some really cool, unique mercenary units, like the longbow. Yeah, well, guess what? The English, they get that too. They get that too. They don't think that's special. Not special at all.
No, I mean, if you're the Byzantines and you make the mercenary house with the Western contract and longbowmen English are going to be like, yeah, we made those. So, you know, we kind of know what to do about it.
Oh,
But it looks like Puppy Paw going to be going for the Abbey. That's right, Crackety. And, you know, with the Abbey, I mean, I get it. You know, the king doesn't have a long distance in order to traverse. But looking at this Byzantine base, you can see the berries are in the back. The gold is in the back. Where is it going to necessarily go?
I was thinking, okay, maybe this king is merely like meant to delay Lucifron in order to facilitate a fast castle age from Puppet Paw. We've seen the White Tower just being incredibly strong on these like very, very tiny maps because there's not a lot of map control to go around. And with the White Tower, suddenly you take a majority of the portion of it away from your opponent. I would have thought it would be that, but then I saw Puppy Paw pull all of his villagers over to wood, and now I'm like, no, it's gonna be 2TC. On a map like this? Interesting. There's not a long distance between you and your opponent, so if Lucifron decides to go for aggression, this is gonna work out much better than it did in the B versus Marinelord game on Dry Arabia.
And I think Lucifron's the kind of guy that can execute something like an aggressive. We all know Vortex is a very aggressive player, so Lucifron probably cut from a similar cloth, having half of his genetic code. I think that ends up paying off. But with the Abbey of the Kings coming up here, exactly right. I mean, with this second town center, you also got to be thinking about where you're going to put it, right? Because on a map like Cotra, and the distance is minimalized, the places that you put things are exponentially more important, right? So having a town center, if you want to go somewhere like forward, like near Deer Pack or something like that, if you're English, it's usually not a good idea anyway, but you know that it's dangerous. You know that that's the greedy thing to do. So you end up, maybe you're putting it by your gold, which is in the back. That can definitely help you because I've seen some Socotra games. I've seen some practice games from other top players and streamers and that kind of stuff. Some people dock and make a navy.
We've seen that time and time again, but usually against Malians because their pit mine is right next to the shoreline. This time there aren't really any pit mines, and I would still say that this is an option for these players to go for. But I think as the Byzantines, you'd rather not. You don't really have a Springle ship. You'd rather stay away from water if possible. You get the drone on, and once the drone comes out, you're suddenly gonna be like, why did I make this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of... I didn't really expect to drone on about the Dromon, but with this in the particular situation, I mean, obviously with water there, we just don't see Byzantines on water because of it, right? And Lucifron's going to make sure that everything stays kind of on land, right? He's going to be adding a barracks. He adds some limit to nade, which is really going to help him against the king. And it looks like with that micro, this is something that Lucifron does very, very well, just keeping those berry villagers safe, right? You want to get that first set of mercenary units. You want to make sure that you're getting whatever contract you end up getting. You're going to be able to get that to protect yourself to get the second one. So there is a little bit of compounding interest on that.
Second TC coming in for Puppy Paw now, slightly forward. I'm telling you what, Tim, I'm a little bit worried here. If we see some clown carring, as we saw from B earlier, just without losing 2 of your villagers and going for a very far outward proxy without any benefits from it, this might end up being like a really easy to harass TC for Lucifron here.
Yeah, because even from the villagers getting a little pissed off, bringing the Akratoy out. You see those spears got a little bit bigger. They put their shivs back in their pockets, so they get a little bit of extra damage. But for Puppy Paw in the English, you're exactly right, Crackney, with this second town center. I mean, he tried to make it as safe as possible, but there's still avenues in which you can attack, right? You can still attack from that northeast side in between the two wood lines, southeastern side betwixt the two wood lines as well. You might have the ability to get a ram over there, and even though, you know, it's English and they're a defensible civ and, you know, they have a town bell that rings every time you get near it. It's like a alarm bell. The second town center still can only garrison 7 and still only has an attack of 6, right? So if you can get that TC down, all of a sudden the economic advantage for the English is completely gone.
Where's the production buildings for Puppy Paw? I'm not seeing them. Don't think they exist. And siege engineering is now in queue.
Look at his macro, Crackety. I think he's trying to get to Castle Age as soon as possible.
No way, that is not happening. No way, Jose.
He's been on 6 wood for a minute now. It's going up a little bit. Yeah, he's gonna need some units. I mean, the king's gonna do a little bit of scouting, and he sees that there's javelin throwers. He sees there's limit to nay. He has to vacate some of those deer packs, and hopefully Lucifron will be able to get his ram, his flaming ram, over to that second TC, where I don't necessarily think Puppy Paws have a good answer. He's still macroing, Crackety. Look at it.
Yeah, no production buildings yet at all. Puppy Paw he's just ignoring it. He's just ignoring it. The clown, I want to say the clown car isn't coming in yet. There's still no Cure Siphons coming in, but Lucifron has the resource to, in theory, just pump out 2 right away. I'm not sure what he's doing. There we go. Now the Cure Siphon is coming in. Get out 2 of those bad boys. Just take the TC down and take the war over to Puppy Paw's base.
Yeah, because I mean, if that TC goes down, Puppy Paw goes down for game number 3, right? I mean, not having that advantage, but it's going to take a while to build them. It's going to take a while to build them, and look at what Puppy Paw's at. He's at about 900 food. He's at about 500 gold. I mean, honestly, this is just kind of a race. He's depending on the defensibility of an English base. He's depending on that. So he has
to depend on, but the food is running out. Look at that, the sheep.
Yeah, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go now? You know, that's one of the beauties about Cotra. I mean, it's a really small map, obviously. You know, we talked about that at great length. He's got some sheep carcasses left. It looks like there's about 6. But once he gets to Castle Age, right, is he going to be able to make units? And where is he going to put that white tower? You know, so it's going to be difficult. Now he's going for a little bit of a farm transition at a time when you probably don't want to be doing that right now. He does hit the button. The white tower is starting to go up. He's got 8 villagers on it, so probably in about a minute or so, it ends up going up. And if that white tower goes up, now he's pulling the boys. 25 villagers on that white tower, trying to get that up as soon as possible. I think he's basically conceding the fact that this town center is going to go down. I mean, obviously, you don't have any military to stop anyway.
Oh, he cancelled and built again. Oh, this delays the timing by a good bit. Oh, this is so rough now for Puppy Paw.
Yeah, he's got...
Lucifer is just diving. He's gonna kill villagers. Just wants to go for the kill on the villagers now. He's gonna get a couple of villager kills, I want to say. Not too many. Should still have a lead at the end. And Lucifer's gonna have to run away. Puppy Paw can literally put all but 2 villagers inside of the keep. That's how many, there's so many slots in that keep for villagers, it's kind of insane. 20 villagers find shelter inside of that keep.
This is disgusting. I'm sorry. This is disgusting. The fact you get that white tower and you kind of stopped any kind of offensive push in its tracks. It looks like a lot of those villagers look like they like fire just a little bit too much. They're trying to go ahead and light their torches with some of that Kyrosiphon fire, that Greek fire that's over there. And a lot of these rams, remember, these rams don't have as much health as a normal battering ram, so maybe they end up going down a little bit quickly. That town center, again, acting as a machine gun, making sure javelin throwers, limit to nay, and the like are not going to be able to get there. Looks like he's trying to get this starting town center down, and, you know, he just might if the villagers don't get their torches out soon. But it begs the question, I mean, how's he going to deal with the tower?
The TC and the lumber camp go down. Where is Puppy Paw going to drop wood off?
All right, that's an issue. Yeah, I didn't think about that. that could be kind of an issue. Now villagers are going to try pull those torches out and take these things down. The real nice thing, though, I mean, he doesn't have any food left, and that's kind of the big issue, you know, because he built the white tower and it's acting as a keep, and that's all really good, but he got the defense, he's not getting the tempo, right? Because he doesn't have the food economy. So he's not able to make any units out of it at all. He would love something like some men-at-arms, right? Some Castle Age men-at-arms with Iron Chad, you know, all that kind of stuff, making sure you're taking those javelins, make sure you're taking those limited A spears, but he just can't make any.
God. At least he's killing a couple of the javelin throwers every now and then. Oh my god, he's losing. He just lost 6 villagers. He just lost 6 villagers to the fire. They just popped out of the TC right in the fire, and they all died. He lost 50 villagers.
Puppypaw's making a Springald out of the white tower. I don't know if one Springald is going to do it for you, my friend, especially with a lot of those melee units, but that town center, that machine gun is no more. Puppypaw is no more. Yeah, that's chaos, baby. That's all
That is not how I thought this game would go. That is not at all how I thought this game was gonna go. I thought, okay, Puppypaw's gonna go to DC. He's gonna get a ton of longbows out, maybe some horsemen. He's gonna defend his base. But no, he just gave the second TC up, and suddenly Lucifer was all over his base. The sheep ran out, and suddenly the game ended.
Don't anybody tell me you weren't entertained by that game. That was that was a lot of fun to watch. I was I was kind of curious as to if Puppypaw was going to be able to get that out with that white tower. I was like, is the white tower that good? You know, to take down all of these rams and the limited A and the javelin throwers? The answer was no.
Well, I'm confused, boys, because I'm pretty sure I've seen some YouTube videos and Reddit threads that said the White Tower rush build is unbeatable. It's impossible. It cannot be overcome. But yet here, Luciferon defies fate. He gets himself to match point, and we've got to dissect these. A few of these games very quick. That opening game, I think we kind of just expect Roos to take that off the block. The interesting thing though, Crackety, is even Puppypaw couldn't make the French work, even though he's the only person to do so far on Archipelago. I think he's actually the only person with a win. But now, the funny part is 24 hours later, we go from 100% win rate to a 20% win rate for the French, putting them in last.
Close. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a couple of times. French on water maps, they don't have a lot of them going for them. At least when you compare them to like the big four. The big four civilizations that like rule supreme on water. You got like Juji, you got your China, you got your Achery, you have your Order of the Dragon-ish kinda. I want to say like Order of the Dragon. They work sometimes. They work mostly on like those pure water maps, not so much on the hybrid maps. And after it like goes English, and I think very much at the bottom, there's Byzantines, and just a tiny notch above them, there's French.
Yeah, I think maybe Joan can fare a bit better, but even she's having a hard time. 25% win rate in this tournament so far as well. Like looking at this series so far, Tim, I mean, what the education point is, and I think we should have expected this. Kind of feels like pressure, right? Like I think that's going to be the recurring theme for the rest of this series. Is whoever goes all in is likely to take the dub, similar to what we just saw in game number 3.
And I'm going to be honest with you, KP. That's my favorite way the Age of Empires is played. I mean, like you see your opponent being like, okay, I'm gonna spend some resources, I'm gonna spend some villager allocation time to go get something like a second town center, right? I mean, granted, Puppypaw maybe making units might have been a good idea, but for Byzantines, he saw that. Luciferon sees that, and he's like, you're not doing that. We're gonna take this thing down. When you're trying to get that economic advantage, it should be a risk, right? Because it's a greedy thing to do. It's a greedy thing to do things like the Mongols in the first game, trying to get trade going, right? Trying to get that trade going, get all that map control. It's a risk, and you should have the ability to get punished for it. The good players are the ones who get that economic advantage, and they can pull it off.
Yeah, I think that's why people have been joining Archipelago, despite what some people might not like playing them. What we love about Archipelago is every time we see someone go Castle Age, end up being the one who loses the game so far. Looking forward to the rest of this draft, just quickly, just getting your thought on this, Crackety. Obviously got Japanese versus Abbasis Cup next. Then potentially a Zhone Delhi showdown, or maybe a Zhone Ottoman showdown. Is there someone you favor if this goes to that game 5?
If it goes to game number 5, I think in many situations, Puppypaw should be very fine with Jean. You can't go Mali because Mali kind of like dies to Delhi straight up, and Ottomans have a pretty good shot against them as well. So Mali definitely out of the picture. Jean, I can see there 100%.
Well, we'll have to see if he can get to that game 5 and maybe put Shown in a little bit more of a positive standing at the end of the day. But for now, we hop into some dominant and strong picks for Kawasan. Japanese in the hands of Puppy Paw, Lucifron taking to the Abbasids. Can Lucy close it in 4, or are we going the full distance? Let's find out.
All right, here we go on Kawasan. Puppy Paw versus Lucifron, both players opening up with their docks on that southern pond.
Yeah, I really like this pick out of both players. You know, we talked about the Japanese on water just a little bit in our very first series, with the Japanese having their fishing boats at half price, right? Docks are full price. Fishing boats are half price. Loose fraud. Flip that around. Docks are half price. Fishing boats are full price. Probably the fishing boats, depending on how many that you actually get on each Kawasan pond, probably ends up paying off more in wood economy for the Japanese. You know, for getting your ability, maybe less villagers on food or on wood consistently to try to get a lot of those fishing boats. But for the Abbasids, just because of the fact that there are 2 different ponds, and you can start getting a lot of these docks off underway to continue to make navy and all of that kind of stuff. Abbasid is a really good pick on this map too.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. It's very easy for both these civilizations to reboom on another pond if they lose a pond. For Abbasid, obviously, because they get the docks up for cheap. And for Japanese, because, as you mentioned, the fishing ships are very, very cheap for them. So, sure, pay full price for a dock, but as soon as you get the dock up, suddenly it's smooth sailing when it comes to repopulating your fishing economy. The one thing that I'm thinking about right now that makes this matchup very interesting to me is the way the Abbasids' military bonuses work. So, something that we've seen a lot of times recently with Abbasid on this map is that they don't even go for water at all. They just straight up go military wing, and then they try to ram down the opponent's dock. This time, Lucifron is opening up with his own dock. And something that's interesting when I'm looking at the economy behind this, neither of these players now have any villagers left on wood. They went for like 3 fishing ships, and after that, everything is focused on the age up.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this map, as far as a hybrid map, I think just because of the points that you alluded to, it plays so differently, right? Just like this. You know, we're seeing essentially just a stereotypical, yeah, food and gold age up, but, you know, we had a little bit of a stop, a little bit of a caution flag to get some wood, get some docks, end up getting a couple boats. Lucifron's going to be the first one to hit up to feudal age. Going to be going with that military wing, can add some boot camps in feudal age if he chooses to. Whereas Japan, I'm curious to see this pick because obviously there's a dock and there's only 2 or 3 fishing boats, but on Kawasan, just because you have the land units and the connections, the land connections, Koka's got to be the move here, right?
Yeah, Koka Township is coming in. Then again, military wing, you get 2 free archers, so you will have your tools when it comes to dealing with that shinobi. But if the shinobi is quick, might still be in a position to deny the first military ship coming out from the Abbasid Lucifron. Now shifting more villagers again over to wood, so we'll likely want, like both players will likely want to just immediately get some military ships out there. Interesting fun fact that production is throwing out there is that both of these 2 civilizations, both the Japanese and the Abbasid, are both the worst performing civilizations on Kawasan so far in the tournament.
That, you know,
yeah, that's my reaction to that. I was like,
Wouldn't have guessed that. Wouldn't have guessed that one. But I mean, it could be just because of some of the matchups that they ran up against, right? I mean, it's so difficult in a tournament. Like when you're talking about a tournament meta and a tournament, you know, standings for all of these civilizations, you're usually going up against some of the other best maps of this. It's not really like ladder, where some people just hit random and they kind of see what happens on particular maps. And
it's not Delhi.
Right.
Puppy Paw for a second, he pulled his fishing ships out. It looked like he wanted to attack the villager from Lucifron there, then suddenly pulls him back. Wait, no, I'm not playing Delhi here.
I mean, with this too, now that you see these fishing boats, we got them, you know, experimenting on the same pond, and you know they're grabbing each other's fish. They're having a good time. We're probably waving back and forth at each other. But now, the time for peace, the time for safe fishing is over. And Abbasid did get their second dock. Lucifron did. I would imagine the Japanese tries to do that as quickly as possible. But again, one of the things that we have seen for the Japanese is when you're continuously doing things like getting gold, you're getting some passive stone income, they're the first one to hit that naval arrow slits. And on a map like Kawasan, where the pawns are as small as they are, it could dictate a lot.
This is rough. Puppy Paw, he moved out to that second pond, but Scout from Lucifron spots him out there, and 2 spearmen immediately make their move onto that villager. No shinobi nearby, so that villager, he's a gunner.
Yeah, that thing's going to go down, and that -1, even though you might think it's one villager, not that big of a deal, it could hurt. It could hurt a lot. We got shinobis trying to disrupt the secondary dock of Lucifron, and it looks like it was able to, but just the fact he has 2 docks is going to continue to be there now. Aeroship for the Japanese has to end up getting repaired. Spearman trying to take down this shinobi, but I don't know if they really know. This shinobi is an actual ninja, and it's going to be very difficult for them to do that. Looks like he ends up disappearing away, taking it down one spearman and working its way over there. Now an archer ship and a springald ship, as you can see wonderfully on that picture-in-picture on the lower left-hand part of your screen. You have an arrow ship, you have a springald ship. Lucifron going to be adding a demo ship as well. Obviously getting that rock, getting that paper, getting that scissors, and making sure that you're going to be able to deal with anything that comes into your vicinity. Second demo ship ends up coming out. And I think this is a lot of just because Abbasid has the ability to have that second dock, you're going to be able to produce a decent amount. Shinobi trying to get that little bit of a sabotage over there on the north side. Hopefully he's able to hit that button pretty soon. Demo ship coming in from the eastern side. Going to be able to smack that springald ship from the Japanese. And all of a sudden, it's 2 docks to 1 for the Abbasid. There's military on it, and there's no military for the Japanese. That's 1 pond that Puppy Paw can't go at anymore.
Puppy Paw, he's in a world of pain right now, losing that pond. No real way right now of coming back in it. He doesn't have the tools in order to get a second dock up on there now. Doesn't have any stone, or at least not enough stone to get an emplacement out there as well. And Lucifron already has a dock up on that northern pond. Looks like Puppy Paw might want to go for one of his own, but the military wing unit still alive and kicking for Lucifron here. And yeah, Lucifron, he's just focusing right now on taking down that dock from Puppy Paw. And man, Lucifron, on these like hybrid maps, looking absolutely dominating right now.
And this is what makes those military wing units so important, because I mean, obviously we know what happens with these shinobi. I mean, just having those 1 or 2 archers makes a world of hurt for those shinobi. They're really, really speedy, so that means they got to eliminate some of their armor in order to skirt their way around a lot of the map. But having those 1 or 2 archers for free, well, Puppy Paw has to pay for his shinobi, and Lucifron just gets handed the free counter. It's too easy. Now Puppy Paw's got to add a stable, and he's got to be adding some horsemen at a time when his food economy that was on the eastern pond is now gone.
Villager isn't going to survive that. Scout will actually take that one down, but Horseman will finally clean up some of these archers, some of these free archers that came out with the military school. Issue is that behind all of this, Lucifron already has 2 docks up on that northern pond compared to 1 dock here right now from Puppy Paw. Shinobi are coming out, trying to sabotage these buildings. Sabotage is going to be coming out, and that one is actually a collapse sabotage, but the ship is going to be popping out any moment now. Looks like Scout isn't going to go down to the TC.
And you can see Puppy Paw, just because of the fact that he was able to sabotage, he got a little bit of an upper hand. I do want to say, though, just because it's 2 docks to 1, you can't, just based on how many shinobi there are out, it's going to be difficult to continuously sabotage something. And the springald ship from the Abbasid Dynasty going to be able to make quick work of that 1 shinobi. The second shinobi might end up escaping. But again, that's resources that you spent to do that. Just to delay for a little bit of time. Now, you don't have to worry about it. You have arrow ships. You get a little bit of a sabotage. If Shinobi comes up running, you might not be able to deal with a demo ship from Puppy Paw and from Lucifron trying to get a good hit, and it will if he just goes over there, and it does. Demo ship goes down for Puppy Paw. That's pond number 2 secured for Lucifron. And I don't know if you know this, Kraken. Are you looking at the map? There's only 2 here.
Yeah, both of the docks go over to Lucifron, and man, this is feeling really, really difficult now for Puppy Paw. 8 economy units behind now. He's getting Shinobi out, but that's costly units right now, and he's not really getting a lot of value out of them. He's getting some burn damage, but overall, nothing too noteworthy here in the end. And yeah, just with 1 dog versus 3, he's never gonna be in a position where he can actually get any of these pawns back. Tries to get one of the villagers down, but no, both Shinobi actually able to take one of the villagers down there. Some value gained.
I mean, yeah, you know, a villager ends up going down, but how many resources of Shinobi was it cost? You know, I mean, it's just it just seems like what Puppy Paw is doing with these Shinobi and with these horsemen, they're just disadvantageous trades, right? And we're seeing that kind of compound, especially on land with the Shinobi. A horseman finally goes down, and Puppy Paw's got to allocate some of those villagers onto food at a time when Lucifron doesn't need to do that. And now that he has all of these docks, he's going to be able to continuously be able to press on and keep some of these fish. And for Puppy Paw, he's going to be battling uphill for basically his tournament life.
Yeah, this is it. This is the match point for Lucifron. If he wins this one, which he might very well do, as it's looking for him right now. Puppy Paw behind us. He's trying to age up. He's gathering up the food for it, but Lucifron, he's even closer to age up still, due to that free food. Well, not free food, but the food that he is getting from that fishing economy.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it's all about, right? I mean, that's why everybody fights for water so much. Getting the ability to get all of these deep water fish, and now Lucifron will hopefully be able to take this dock down for his sake, but Naval Air Slits does come in at Japanese at a time when I just wish he had it a long time ago.
Demo ship. It's just putting itself right next to a dock saying, all right, you focus down my demo ship with your emplacement, but you're still gonna do the same damage, even if it just exploded itself. And there we go. Dock is now gonna be burning. Springle ship is gonna be on its way. Floating gate is coming in. Oh man, floating gate into a stable with Yorishiro, but there's already 7 spearmen out for Lucifron at this point in time. That is not gonna do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when you're the Japanese, you got to be thinking about with that floating gate and getting the Yorishiro, getting that military production speed. What are you going to go for, right? For Japan going into Castle Age, you know, you think about doing things like Mounted Samurai. Some people go Onimusha, which I kind of enjoy. Puppy Paw going to be adding that forward barracks, it looks like. Going into Castle Age, maybe we might see some Samurai, which, honestly, the matching up between what Lucifron can make in Castle, things like Gulams and all that kind of stuff, it feels like the Japanese can trade well into it, but there's just too many Spearmen for Mounted Samurai to make an impact.
And Lucifron's almost fully walled. I think he just pulled like 6 villagers in order to wall the other side of his base as well. Like, at this point, Lucifron will be fully walled by the time Puppy Paw arrives. Yeah, it's like 4 villagers right now, just getting those walls up.
And that's what, I mean,
forward.
This was the idea for Puppy Paw. He's like, yeah, I'll try to get some technological advantage because that's kind of the only thing that I have. Not really going to work out for you too well. I mean, he is trying to get the Samurai upgrade to try to get the hardened Samurai, the Feudal Age upgrade, and we'll be trying to get out a couple. He does have a Samurai on horseback. He's got some mounted Samurai, but again, just because of those walls, it's not going to get there for the Abbasids. And going up to Castle Age, it's minute 45 seconds, whether you like it or not. So that Culture Wing will take a little bit of time, but it will end up going up. And then we're going to see that big power spike from the Abbasids, especially having all of this water and having all of this food. It means you can make so many units.
Samurai is fighting now, but now Age Up comes in for Lucifron as well, and Puppy Paw, he's finding himself in a world of pain here. Samurai as well, against this many spearmen, doesn't quite stand a chance yet. Looks like that Mounted Samurai might also get taken down either by the spearmen or deflective armor or the ship. Second shot comes in.
You're not deflecting that, buddy. Let me tell you. First one, maybe. Second one, not so much. And these Mounted Samurai, he's trying to kill villages, right? He's trying to add a little bit of pressure. It's just not going to happen, right? It's just not going to happen. Mounted Samurai will end up getting a charge, but because of you kiting around a lot of these spearmen, trying to figure out where to go is going to be difficult. I think there was a little bit of a chop through over on the southeastern part of that wood line. So Mounted Samurai does get in, and maybe a worker or two ends up going down, but I think it should be easily taken care of. Lucifron's adding some knights because he has the ability to. He's going to be adding some crossbowmen because his food economy is as good as it is.
Yeah. Crossbows now also coming in for Lucifron. I'll be honest here. Like, at this point in time, don't really see Puppy Paw winning this unless Lucifron somehow throws away his lead there. No Rams as well, and there are so many docks, so even if you take down one of the docks, it doesn't really matter. Fishing is still going to be going on.
This is something that Lucifron's doing very well with his military ships. You know, I mean, obviously he got the notification that one of the docks are ending up getting attacked, but before that he was able to patrol and make sure if there was any kind of dock that was coming out, Lucifron was going to be able to see it, and he was going to be able to take it down. Puppy Paw using some land mass just to attempt to try to take down docks, but so many units from Lucifron. Crackety, you know, I mean, military counts 34 to 14. I know we have God mode so we can see what's going on, but for Lucifron, I feel like all he has to do is make a little bit of a mass and A move somewhere, and it's ball game.
Yeah. All the military from Puppy Paw right now in the middle as well, and it feels like he can't really move away from that spot, because as soon as he moves away, that kind of exposes the majority of his food economy right now. He's getting a lot of food granted through his berry gathering. Berry gathering just being very, very strong there for the Japanese, even better than for the Delhi. Is it going to be enough? At least he's going to get one dock down, but one dock goes down, two more go up, as Lucifron is adding two more docks on that pond.
Yeah, and I mean, what's really, for the Abbasid, I mean, you take it down, it's just 75 wood, right? I mean, you're going to be able to make one in no problem, and that's exactly what he does. He just has to pull a villager to do it. Puppy Paw not sufficiently walled. As you can see over there on the northern side, look at all these villagers starting to run for their lives. They're trying to find wherever the Japanese army is. It's like, hey, we need some help. Your peasants, your serfs, they're going to end up going down. And they're going to be trying to go back to that goal. Mounted Samurai might be able to clean up some of these raiding knights out of the Abbasid dynasty. One or two villagers might end up going down if Lucifron has the wherewithal. But again, this is just all about making units. You're causing all of this idle time. Less units, even though there's a Yoroshiru in a Japanese stable that's going to be able to make a lot of those mounted samurai. It's all about making sure your villagers are getting the resources so you can continuously produce from it. Either that, and it's not going to pay off.
Behind all of this now, Lucifron, he's making more and more spearmen. No obligations coming out from Puppy Paw at this point in time. Instead, going for his own spearmen, getting the upgrades in on those. But Lucifron, he's just perfectly content right now with sitting inside of his base and just massing up more and more units. Speaking of sitting inside of his base, I think he's kind of stopped doing that now, as his army is starting to push forward. One outpost here for Puppy Paw. Is that going to be enough to deter Lucifron? It is not, and Lucifron, he's going to charge right in there with his spearmen.
Yeah, I think some of these spearmen just as long as they're able to just maintain a front line, because the crossbowmen are really going to be used, right? The mounted samurai have to back up, making sure they're not getting hits from some of those spearmen. The samurai going to be able to deflect a lot of what the spearman is giving. This fight, even though, you know, that range mass from Lucifron ends up being relatively safe, overall, that fight for Lucifron, because Puppy Paw, he needed to make a colossal victory in order to make a difference in this game.
Yeah, it did not happen, that colossal victory. There's still so many units flooding over right now from Lucifron's side. Lucifron, 1,200 food per minute. Puppy Paw at 500 food per minute. It just doesn't add up, and GG gets called. Puppy Paw, not able to win this one, is going to give over to Sirius, to Lucifron, 3-1.
Yeah, what a fantastic series. I mean, these are just, I mean, you could think about one or two games that might have been played a little bit differently, you know, but this was the series that we want to see out of one half of the Canadian brethren and one half of the Spanish brethren. We had a very good start to the two series that we have between both of them. But this is just something that Lucifron was able to maintain that water control. And we all know, we all play Age of Empires 4, who's here. You win water, you win the game. And that's exactly what Lucifron was able to do in this pivotal game number 4. And now we have our next series that's going to be coming up rather soon. It's going to be the other half of both of these players. It's going to be Wham and Vortex. KP, what'd you think about that one, brother?
Well, I think a lot of people maybe an unexpected result here. Stats don't lie is what a good friend of mine told me a long time ago in the Dota 2 scene, and apparently stats do not lie here. That is now 5 times in a row that Lucifron has been able to slay Puppy Paw. That takes him up to close to a 90% win rate now since the beginning of 2023. And now it poses a real question, doesn't it? Because Crackety, the Lucifron we saw a little bit earlier in the tournament, not too bad, but definitely not his best form. All of a sudden, with what he just done here against Puppy Paw, the question's got to be asked. Is this a grand finalist?
Man, this is a tough call. This is a very tough call to make, and I gotta be honest, I don't want to make it yet. I don't want to make it yet. So far, these games, it feels like in many situations, Puppy Paw kind of got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. For example, that English game, going for that second TC, going straight up to Castle Age without any production buildings whatsoever. Yeah, that hurt. That definitely hurt. Gave Lucifer ample opportunity to try and punish that. On water map wasn't quite the same case, but it was French on water, so you kind of like shoot yourself in the leg with that a little bit.
Yeah,
Kind of an issue. I think he could have put up a little bit of a better fight if he had more archships, but for that you really have to anticipate just how much Lucifer was doubling down on that mass of demo ships there. Definitely, like that's not something that you can see coming.
To that war game, especially Tim, like when we think back to that, the infamous, almost signature demo pump that we see out of Vortex and Lucifer earlier than practically any other player in water, it requires such a strenuous level of micro to overcome. Yet Puppy Paw, who I think most people would actually rank very highly on that list, looked like a toddler in the face of that danger.
But KP, the first go round of that with all of Lucifer's demo ships, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
He did great. He split off a lot of those warcogs. He made sure. I don't know why I'm motioning all the way back here. It's just a random wall, but I'm talking with my hands here. The warcogs the first time around, it was so great, right? The second time around, it's just how many times can you do that perfectly, right? It almost it kind of feels like bowling, right? You get your strike and you're like, oh, okay, I just have to do that every single time. But that's the game. That's what makes it tough.
You run around for 20 minutes like, whoo, damn, I'm dancing. Who's next? And then you look behind you. It's an entire zombie apocalypse coming your way, right? There's only so much one man can do. But, I mean, credit to Lucifer. He finally got a win on the board for Abbasids here. Was that statistic a little bit surprising to you, Crackety? The fact that Abbasids, this is their fourth game played. Kawasan, this is the first time they get a win.
I personally just don't read a lot into statistics that come from the group phase at all. It's very scuffed. Like you have to be careful with which statistics you really trust, because if we just go by statistics, Byzantines is one of the weakest civilizations in the game and needs a buff desperately.
Well, actually, but at the same time, Crackety, if we go by statistics, HRE is one of the top 4 competitors. So I mean, I don't know where we go with this, mate. Are you trying to tell me maybe HRE isn't that high, or?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that story.
All right, I'm going to let you go and deep huff the hopium and kick a barrel after I said that, because it's time for me to talk to the audience while you guys stretch your legs before we get into our 4th and final series of the day. So, you know what time it is. I need to do a check. Who's bought some Surfshark? Do you see that in the background? 4 months free. Insanity ensues. Do you realize that it only costs, what, €2 a month? That works out about 45, 50 euros across 2 years. But then we're discounting it further because we're giving the 4 months on free. Now, keep in mind, if you go buy 1 or 2 products and you save yourself 30, 40%, on average, you've already made your money back. On top of that, you can actually do so much more than that. I've just been looking at a few things here. I was actually talking to Lidda the other day, who was trying to nerd out and watch Hungary potentially win football for once in their life. And what he said is he was struggling to actually watch the football until he turned on the VPN. All of a sudden in America, he could find a way to do it. Now, the other interesting thing in that is I was thinking about this, and it works for other things too. Did anyone else watch the Counter-Strike by any chance? Was anyone else like kind of engaged with that? Na'Vi versus Team Spirit. Pretty epic finals coming in. But I don't want to be rammed with ads every 20, 30 minutes. Turns out someone gave me the tip that if you sign into, I think they said Lithuania, it just disappeared. I'll tell you what, the next 4 hours of my life were bloody entertaining. No worry about Gillette telling me I need to slice off the wrong part of my body. No worry about Gucci telling me to get a jacket I simply can't afford on my wage. I was just in bliss. AoE 4 on one screen, Counter-Strike on the other. Incredible time. If you guys haven't taken advantage of it, do so, because we are trying to get Surfshark to come in for the 3rd time in a row. And I've even been trying to get them to engage with maybe helping us concoct some entertaining content for you guys to engage with in the break. So definitely use that code now if you've been thinking about a VPN. But let's talk a little bit about what's been happening in tournaments. Some interesting results now coming out. I don't think many people anticipated Puppy Paw falling to Lucifron so simply in the end, but it looks like Lucy back on top of the game. After a short break, we will be finding out if Vortex is able to match the pace of his bro and upset the full NA audience, so they will have no one to back and will have to choose a European to salute. But the interesting thing is looking at this tournament so far, Crackety aligned it a little bit that sometimes the stats in the group stage can actually dilute things the wrong way. But I think some of these stats are holding true. After the games we've seen so far today, France is now down at a 20% win rate in this tournament. Incredible that they actually managed to win one game. On top of that, Joan is now down at a 25% win rate. Even she can't turn the tides. All you goldies, silvers who've been having trouble, maybe it's time to tune into a few more of these games. And if you subscribe to the channel, you'll be able to catch all those nitty-gritty details that let the pros stomp her time and time again. I think the biggest surprise for people, though, is the fact that Byzantines are finishing now in bottom 3 in this tournament so far. I think the win coming out from Lucifron may bump them up to about 4th, but they are still a low-performing Civ so far in Master of Realms. The top performers, of course, are going to be Zhuji, Ayabids, Chinese, and HRE. Japan just took another bump, another hit. Order of the Dragon, a big surprise, are actually coming in the top 6. That is definitely a big part to do with maps like Archipelago, where they've been a comfort pick, considering how often Zhuji China can be expected to be banned here. What can we look forward to moving forward, though? Well, we know a few of our players and how they're going to align so far. We know that Marine Lord has made it through to the semi-finals. Oh, who could have predicted that? Beastie versus Lucifron is going to be what's kicking off next weekend as well, though, as the Spaniard and the Serbian will match up. Interesting series, actually, one that can easily go back and forth, especially with Lucifron up to his former form. The question mark we still have to answer next weekend is whether Beastie has continued to put the practice in. I remember him saying just 2 or 3 weeks ago that he wasn't sure if he's going to be able to get enough games in to really compete, but I'm starting to think he might have been baiting me a little. Now, looking forward to the Wham versus Vortex series. This is going to be an interesting one for you guys. You need to hype this up big because while the Lucifron series is a dominant crotch stomper, Wham versus Vortex is as close as 50% as you can possibly get from 2023 onwards. Outcome of the game is never easy to predict. And also, let's keep in mind, although Vortex was able to get revenge against Anatan, he showed signs of weakness earlier on the group stage that I honestly do not think Lucifron matched. So there's all that to play for. Now, remember, guys, what I need to see you spamming in chat when these games are going on, I need you to make sure you're T-Toursing every time you see a good moment from the production. I've been told that's exactly what T-Tours means. It's your way of complimenting Cal and, of course, Vodka, who have been working tirelessly behind the scenes. Big shout out to all the other ETC staff who have also been working their arse off. But, guys, I think we are about a minute away from getting into our next set. I want to see the fanboyism here, though. In the chat, spam it out, whether you are a Vortex believer or a Wham believer. Because the interesting part is, if I'm not mistaken, Marine Lord versus Vortex, I think that's a matchup that Marine Lord has won time and time again in the last several times they've clashed. While Wham versus Marine Lord, that is also a matchup where Wham has been able to cinch a few games, but I don't think he's ever been able to quite take the lead over the Chad. And remember, we're talking about Marine Lord, that he did brag that he was just going to dumpster everyone in these tournaments for the entire year. He was feeling like it was finally his year. And so far, he has failed to drop a game since last hoisting a trophy. So whoever steps up to the mark in the next series between Wham and Vortex is going to have to make sure they look clean, they look ferocious, and they look flawless. Because I've got a feeling nothing but borderline perfection will be enough to take down the French chimp. But I believe it is about time to get into that series. We're going to be going for a live draft here because we want to have a look and concoct what's coming. We want to anticipate, because when I've got a nerd like Crackety on the panel, I need to make sure he's getting all those gigabrain callouts of what's going to be picked and banned.
Yeah, I mean, Wham vs Vortex here, starting off on Gorge. Still got the map draft right now. I'm wondering what the Chaos category is going to be, and we do see it's going to be on Cotra again. So maybe, you know, Vortex, Puppy Paw, Wham, they're all kind of connected one way or the other. It looks like we're getting some very similar maps in here today. So Gorge for the second time, Cotra for the second time, Archipelago again.
Give me Migration. Give me Holy Island. Like I can't believe this. Tim, can
King
you
of the
believe this?
Hill.
Migration, Holy Island, we've only seen it once this entire tournament each.
Yeah, I think Migration just migrated its way out of the map pool because we're not really seeing it. How's that? That was a pretty good fun, isn't it? Right out of the break. King of the Hill for game number 4. That's going to be a difference, right? King of the Hill is a map that I love watching and I love casting. Playing, maybe not so much, but casting it. having the sacred sites, they're so climactic. You know, getting that timer hitting 0 and making sure you get that sacred site victory. It's so much fun to watch and cast. It just makes me start yelling.
I would expect statements none less from a Roos spammer. Like, this is kind of the dream map. And actually, Vortex gets that dream pick. I imagine we'll be seeing Roos reserve for that particular map. HRE is not going to make it through. Crackety just wipes the sweat from his brow. Love the priority of Japanese early on, though. I feel like these map pools we're seeing, Japan has a level of flexibility often with the maps that are coming out, right, Crackety?
Yeah, I mean Japan, they're not the greatest overall. When I would say on land maps, I don't understand exactly why it's a priority pick here from Wham as the first civilization that he picks at all. We just saw it on Kawasan, not looking very convincingly. Granted, it's a very rare matchup against the Abbasid. So you can kind of just take the gamble and be like, okay, yeah, I'll just pick Japan on it again. Surely my opponent isn't going to go Abbasid again. Could potentially happen though. Like I heard Vortex and Lucifron, they're related.
No, I've heard that rumor as well, and like I have heard that Wham and Puppy Paw are related. So maybe we see that again, and all of a sudden Japan could end up being the worst performing Civ, eclipsing Abbasids there. But one that's been kind of interesting to me is actually I feel like this map pool has really bolstered the Malians' viability in the competitive pool, Tim, because I feel like in the last tournament they were almost overpicked, but here with things like Socotra, floodplains, this Civ feels revitalized.
Look at that little accent you got on Sakura. That's why they pay you the big bucks, isn't it? The
They have to for something.
the Socotra pick, obviously with the Malians on it. Obviously for Malians, it's a good pick. I think when you have maps that are maybe not necessarily King of the Hill, but when you're forced to play maps that are a little bit closed, that's going to help you out, right? Because you want to get that boom. You don't want anybody to touch you for the first 8 minutes, and then you end up starting to get that boom. So I feel like just because of the maps that we've been seeing, not necessarily so much the water, but because you have to play closed, because you have to play some of these maps that be a little bit more viable to sit in your base, we're seeing more Malian picks.
Yeah, I think like for Cotra, especially to your point, it's very space efficient, right? And what is happening at the end of Wham's draft? I tell you, these Canadians, they're obsessed with it, Crackety. Not just French this time, but Jean as well.
If one is not enough, you just pick both of them. Yeah, that is very surprising, especially like there's still Order of the Dragon Mongols out for grabs. I'm surprised that Order of the Dragon got picked so late in the draft, considering H3 got banned for both players. By both players, and now we see Gorge. It's gonna be Malians versus Ayubids. So also not a matchup that we see too often, but I think this is gonna be a fairly interesting one because the Malians, I think that they actually deal relatively nicely with the Ayubids.
It's interesting actually because we talked about how Malians have some viability. Admittedly, Tim, they're performing quite poorly. 40% win rate overall. I'm saying this to you because I know Cracker's going to bring up the group stage fact again. But Ayubids at the other end, 69% win rate, the golden statistic for this Civ. Do you have a favored one here? Do you think there's a way Malians can upset?
Nice. I think for the Ayubids, you know what? You know it's crazy because both of these civilizations kind of like doing the same thing. You know, because the Ayubids just want to sit and try to skip feudal age altogether. The Malians are just using their feudal age to try to bolster and get that late imperial age style economy in Castle Age for that power spike. So I think probably one of the reasons why the Malians have such a good matchup in this aspect is because their payoff in Castle Age is just that much better than the Ayubids. The Ayubids get 8 villagers. The Malians get their economy. So you end up the Malians being a little bit better.
I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Because I think we've talked about this before, Crackety, is that a lot of times when we watch Ayubids and Gorge, it feels like it's a good game for Golems, but people just default to Camel Lancers. Is this a matchup where you have that layer of flexibility, or are the Musafadi too good?
I think Musafadi and Mass, like it's just so much easier to mass Musafadi. So even if like the massive Golems look very convincingly, the massive Musafadis should always like trade cost effectively. You got like 2-to-1, 3-to-1, and the attack speed and whatnot. It's just really great overall having those Musafaris. Also, just being able to like choose the fights that you take. Suddenly, you don't go for the cam lens. Suddenly, you don't have the mobility, which is why I personally think many times we see Ayubit players, they drop a stable and then they drop another stable for their camel lancer spam. I'd much rather see them drop a stable and drop a barracks at the same time and just do both.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, Tim, that the Ibids have become linear almost to a point of tedium, right? It's the same game again and again. Military wing, into growth wing. I don't know if I'd say it's an issue of the build being OP and that's the full stop. It's definitely strong, but maybe there's a bigger discussion here that Ibids need some buffs to the other wings when these nerfs inevitably come.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just when you're going military wing into economic wing like that, not only is each wing powerful, obviously in their own right, but they're so synergistic. You know, I mean, using those 1 or 2 desert raiders that you get for free, you're going to be able to harass your opponent so you can get to Castle Age safely, right? And then you get those 8 villagers, and then everything starts, you know, coagulating. Everything starts coming together where you're able to get relics and get all of these units. So I think it's more so you're changing some of how the military wing works in terms of how quickly you're getting those desert raiders out. But also, I mean, some of those other wings that are there, some of the feudal age choices. We talked about this with Abbasid when Abbasid first was out too, where it's like you need some other wings to be viable to make sure you can play other ages.
You know, what I'm really taking away from that is 3 units are OP, which
Pretty
poses the
good.
question: are Ottomans actually making a return, Crackety? Because I feel like I've been seeing them getting picked quite a bit in the draft so far.
Yeah, Ottomans, they're in that weird stage at the moment where they have like some really, really, I want to say borderline overpowered phases with their siege, with the Janissaries. Like as soon as the Janissaries come out, you just take a big red sign and you say, no cavalry allowed in this game. And taking cavalry out of the equation for many civilizations is a deal breaker. It's like, wait, no cavalry? Okay, no game then. And if it gets to the real late game, I don't think there's any civilization that can really comfortably say, oh yeah, I have a really good toolkit against Ottoman late game. There just isn't a civilization that really has that great toolkit against them. The great bombards, like, you could say, yeah, Springles, they're anti-siege, they counter great bombards. That's laughable. You need like 9 shots to take them down.
We saw it yesterday. It looked absolutely absurd on Woodwall. We are just a minute away from these games kicking off. I just want your quick thoughts on this. 20 seconds max, Tim. Whose draft do you prefer?
Ooh, one has Roos and then one has John Dark. So I don't. Well, Vortex has Del. I'm gonna take Vortex. I'm gonna take Vortex.
Crackety, you splitting it or you agreeing?
I'm agreeing. I think China is great. Ottomans is Japan is meh, but Vortex, he's got Ayubids, he's got Delhi, he's got OTD, which looked great on Archipelago so far. Rus also really great on King of the Hill. I would just, based on the draft, I would say that Vortex is a favorite here. But Wham, on the other hand side, he's known to make some interesting games happen, especially against like players like Vortex and Lucifron. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Well, I'm hyped for it. Interesting statistics going in this. They're almost at a 50% win rate. And here's a fun one for you. Every single time these guys have matched up since 2022, midway through, alternating results. The last time they matched up, Wham took it 2-0. Vortex, it sounds like he's overdue for a win. Either that or Wham is going to have to break prophecy and keep NA in Master of Realms. Let's kick it off.
All right. Spawning in Gorge, we got Vortex in the car yellow playing as the Ayubids on the other hand side. Wham, as the Malians, pit mine is going up. Color red. As is tradition.
This is a pretty interesting map for the Malians because we talk about Gorge being an open map, and obviously it is, but I think it's the most open of the open maps. And the reason why I'm saying that is because opposed from your starting resource nodes, obviously your goldstone and all that kind of stuff is near, and you have that wood line in the back for both of these players. You got to go out and get a lot of these resources. There's deer packs around, there's gold mines around for things like getting pit mines. And if you could take a look exactly where Observer is putting in a rather fantastic job, you're seeing where the gold mines are for the Malians. You know, there's one a little bit on the eastern side, but we highlighted over there on that western side. So if Wham wants to get that second pit mine, he's going to have to make a defense someplace that's not close to home.
Yeah, you're gonna have to move out, and ideally, like you want to aim for those very large gold veins, those 8k gold veins, because you can fit more houses around them, meaning you can get more passive gold income there as well. And that means that your villagers are gonna have to move out, or at least one villager will have to move out. You put your economy in harm's way, and that's always the target that you can go for. But at the same time, plenty of times I feel like because the houses are such a cheap investment, unless you're Mongols, it's not even the worst trade for the Malians to lose those houses on a pit mine.
No, I mean, obviously for how cheap they are, right? You're able to get them up, and I think it depends on what the Ayyubids want to do against it, right? I mean, for the Ayyubids, if they want to do something like a fast castle, those pit mines, they just end up going up because you have one or two desert raiders, but that's kind of it, right? So they're really good at harassing civilizations that are on and actually have to put villagers somewhere. You know, for the Malians, they just have to get one villager to go build it. And then afterward, once it's built, that becomes rather difficult. But Vortex is going to be going up with that military wing to get some desert raiders. And do you think in this matchup, Crackety, because we talked about, you know, Castle Age, and then a little bit more Castle Age after that, do you think there's a play for the Ayyubids to get a little feudal aggression?
I think Ayyubid Feudal Age is very underrated many of times because they get such an insane Golden Age Tier 2 bonus where suddenly all their technologies come in 50% faster. 50%, which is absolutely insane. It gives you a huge incentive as the Ayyubids to play a little bit of a prolonged Feudal Age, get a lot more buildings out, then transition into Castle Age, go up, get that Golden Age Tier 2 in, and all of your upgrades just come in much, much quicker.
Yeah, no, they absolutely do. Obviously, fantastic production as we're highlighting over on the eastern side. Again, we can't see when the military wing or any of the Ayyubid wings end up going up, but Cow does a really good job of making sure that all of us, including us casters, know exactly what's going on at all times. Now, looks like with Ayyubid's build order, I mean, yeah, we're going to say it's underrated, but Vortex is going to continue to bypass that notion, as we're seeing only a couple on wood, and he's been trying to gather that golden food, trying to make sure that he gets up there. And I'm guessing, I mean, obviously, the economic wing, but Wham, as the Malians, no military production buildings, because he don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, now the Desert Raider is going to come out. Wham is getting confirmation on that. But we'll have to make sure the scout doesn't get taken down, because as soon as that Desert Raider sees the scout, he can get close, get the bow out, and only takes like 1 or 2 shots in order to take these sheep down. So really have to be careful there with that. Still in the production building. There we go. Production building is going to be coming in for Wham.
They definitely need, hopefully it's an archery range. Yeah, you definitely need something like an archery range. You got to remember, and I made this mistake against Desert Raiders before. I remember one was coming at my gold vein with its sword out, and I was like, oh, I'll just send my villagers to go kill it. But if you click on the Desert Raider really quickly, not good. And the reason why, it has 5 melee armor. So those villagers are just bouncing their shivs off of something like a Desert Raider, whereas ranged armor, obviously, it has 0. So getting 2 or 3 archers is really going to help you. Now, Malians and Wham going for, instead of archers, going to be going for javelin throwers, as the Malians like to do.
Yeah, javelin throws are overall pretty great against the Desert Raiders, because the Desert Raider still has that ranged unit tag. Speaking of Desert Raider, oh my god, Wham, he sent the villager out to build a pit mine on the large gold, but the Desert Raiders running straight for it. But good move by Wham. He's not building the pit mine instead. He's running that villager further up north. Wants to make sure it stays hidden. And yeah, Vortex gets the confirmation. Nothing here. I don't need to be worried about anything. And Wham will have the potential to just go back a little bit later and get that pit mine up.
Oh, what a 5-head play. just a little bouncing around, trying to make sure that villager will be idle just up there for a little bit, but I think it's more so, I mean, yeah, that's probably where his pit mine's going to go, and based on Vortex's scouting, he's like, okay, he doesn't have a pit mine there, but he's going to at some point. And because of that, it's just saved him enough time to get some javelin thrower up there, and we'll be pulling out its melee sword, and we'll be trying to take hits on that javelin thrower, but a lot of the health will end up going down. Second javelin thrower is going to be able to help, and then hopefully that pit mine ends up getting continuously built, and it looks like it is.
Yeah, Vortex second Desert Raider already gonna be coming out. 3 javelin throwers and a Donzo on the way should be enough to deal with those Desert Raiders. But this is, man, the timing, Tim. behind this, Castle Age's going to be coming in now.
Yeah, that's in a particular Ayubid fashion. I mean, it's about 6 minutes 35. I think he hit that button, 6 minutes 40. So he will be able to go up. Again, takes a minute 45 seconds, whether you like it or not, Ayubids or Abbasids. But I think the difference in what makes Ayubids as strong as they are is he's doing this, right? All because of free units. He's doing it because of those Desert Raiders that come out for free. Whereas the Malians, they had to stop in their tracks a little bit. They had to do something like make an archery range and make a barracks and then make units out of it, which cost things. Vortex did not have to do that. So that's why he's able to allocate all of those villagers correctly to try to get to Castle Age. While Wham, he's still trying to get cattle ranches up. He's still trying to do things like cow boom. So for the Ayubids, you have this little bit of time, it feels like, when you're in Castle Age and the Malians aren't, where you got to do some pivotal damage.
I don't think the damage is going to be coming in, though. So Vortex, he kind of gets that freebie up to Castle Age now. 2 Desert Raiders, just all it took here in order to force some pretty major investments from Wham coming out. And I mean, looking at Wham's base, how many cattle ranches does he have filled with cows right now? I don't think it's going to be a lot. I think like 2 cattle ranches full of cows maximum. Yeah, it's 2 cattle ranches that are filled right now. Another couple cows are coming in, but yeah, not looking great in comparison here for him. At least he is getting that second pit mine in, but yeah, now he sees, okay, age-up is going to be coming in soon for my opponent. Just how soon? It's going to be like 20 seconds, and then the age-up comes through for the Ayubids. Just overall, really great time by Vortex. Really like the build-order play here from him. And follow-up play is going to be that stable, so we'll likely be seeing some Camel Lancers fairly soon.
Yeah, and I think for the Ayubids, I think this is a really important hint once you get to Castle Age as the Ayubids, even though he just hits it at 8:43, which is rather impressive timing. The thing of it is, it's not like the Japanese where you get a Yoroshiru and then you can just make so many units all the time. The Ayubids don't get that production speed on top of it. They just get the villagers, right? So even though they did hit Castle Age, you're still thinking about it like a player that makes a knight. Because for a Camel Lancer, it's going to take about 30-35 seconds, right, to actually get that thing out of the stable. And then another half a minute to actually get to your side of the base at a time when you only have, with those Camel Lancers, you only have 1 or 2 torches there. And he's got only 1 stable where 2 are getting queued up. So by the time Wham does hit the Castle Age button, he might only be dealing with 1 or 2 Camel Lancers at a time when Wham is already making the counter. He has Donzos here.
A couple of Donzos are out. Desert Raiders there as well. I don't think there's an outpost or anything like that next to the pit mine from Wham. Age-up should be coming in soon from him, though. And Vortex, he doesn't actually have that much food income right now, even though he just got 8 additional villagers out. But he did invest into an additional mosque and is now starting to collect some relics.
Yeah, he is starting to, and that shows kind of the power of the Ayubids, right? When you get to Castle Age that quickly and you get a couple of units out, it means you got some map control. But now he's adding some archery ranges. Is that 4?
That's a lot of archery range. That's a lot of production buildings to start us off with. So 4 archery ranges now coming in here for Vortex. And you better believe that this is just going to be a mass of just pure archers. No crossbows needed here.
No, I mean, for stuff like, again, when you're playing against the Malians, most of what they have goes down by archers. I mean, he does have some javelin throwers here that are going to help out. That Desert Raider just lost over half its life because the Donzo threw a spear from a different dimension. So it's going to end up backing up just a little bit. And look at this. Ayubids have been Castle Age for about 2 minutes or so. Wham just hits Castle Age. Notice the worker kill counter on the lower left-hand part of your screen. There have been no dead villagers this game. Vortex did not get that kind of aggression yet.
Yeah, not yet, but he is going to be getting the relics. He's setting himself up for a very, very nice push here very soon. So going to be 3 relics going over to Vortex, and I doubt that Wham can really get any at all, I must say. I'd be surprised if Wham can actually get a single relic here in this game. So it's going to be 8 additional villagers and 5 relics for Vortex. Potentially Sacred Site's going to be coming in as well. That's going to be a big difference. More cattle are being built behind this as well for Wham, so at least the food economy is going to be rising. It's going to take a while to really ramp that up now. For the time being, Vortex is still slightly ahead when it comes to the food department. Not anymore, though. Yeah, Wham should now be pulling further ahead, and I don't think he will be giving up that food income advantage anytime soon. The question is, can he make enough units, and can he make good enough units? Because there's also a Mangonel coming in right now. Wham doesn't have a Siege Workshop at the moment. I think it's coming in right now, though.
Yeah, when you're playing against the Malians, you need that. Well, for the IUBID, it's a Manchanique, but you need that. You know, I mean, a lot of the Malian soldiers, they're going to be on foot, as opposed to normal civilizations, whereas the Malians, they might, you know, for as far as sofas go, probably not the move, obviously, against some of those Campbells. They're not really going to help you out, but now that he has that Siege Workshop, he did see the Manchanique from the IUBIDs. Hopefully, he'll be able to queue up a Springled pretty soon. Still trying to track down some of these relics. A Dervish is going to have to run in the opposite direction just to stall out a little bit of time. And you're right, yeah, he's got 3-4 relics, maybe 5. He might be able to get a couple sacred sites. I guess my question is, for how many extra villagers that is, it's probably close to 20, like you did the math before. Is that enough to stop this Malian economy? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see, but we get some fire shots in here, and those shots do a lot of damage to buildings, and look at that. Cattle Ranch under fire. Villager got pulled to repair, quickly thinks twice about it. Springled is now going to be coming out, though. Oh, that's a good shot. That's a good shot. Got some good damage in there. Oh, the cattle, they're actually not garrisoned inside the cattle ranch there.
Oh, yeah, he's missing out on a little bit of food here, but all Wham needs to do is hold right now. All he needs to do is hold. The Donzos, just because of the fact that they have a spear they can throw, they can continue to be a little defensive and start to take down things like these Desert Raiders. Archers, not so much. They're going to be able to make quick work of those Donzos. Couple Donzos end up going down on that western front, but just because of the fact that a Springold exists from Wham, it means that Vortex has to back up. And again, this is just a little bit of time to keep that hold. Just a little bit of time to make a couple more units that he so desperately needs. And if he can get this initial hold that gets out of this IUBID power spike era, it's looking good for the Malian player.
Yeah, for sure. Wham now adding in a third pit mine over on his western side. Vortex, he's just pumping out more and more of these archers right now. Food economy, we did talk about it. Wham, he's just looking very good overall right now when it comes to the food economy. Does have that passive income, doesn't really need to do any transitions there. Vortex will need to move his villagers out on the map, starts gathering some of the deer, starts gathering some of the berries in the mid-map. Wham so far doesn't have any armored units. I think right about now is probably the point in time where, sure, your opponent has camel lancers, but you will still want to get some sofas online. That poison arrows is going to be coming in. More siege now being built by Vortex. That's going to be 2 Springles, 2 Mangonels against just the 1 Springle from Wham right now. Wham doesn't see this, and even once he sees this, it doesn't really leave him a lot of time to react to that.
Yeah, I mean, that could be devastating. You know, just not having the siege superiority in a lot of these games, especially if you're Vortex and you're mounting an offensive, right? Just making sure that you have Manchaniques that are going to take down a lot of those cattle ranches, those pit mines, and one of the reasons why it feels like IUBIDs can match up well is because they have something in their kit to take down buildings rather quickly. Vortex continuing to maintain that aggression and starting to push in a little bit west. Wham sitting at home. He's just making sure as if his buildings end up staying alive and he's able to continuously produce, it's going to work out very well for him. Military count 71 to 47 in favor of Wham. So all he has to do, use those outposts, use that town center, and end up staying alive. We have some Camel Lancers going down from the Donzos. There's only 1 Springold here again. It looks like the Manchaniques are coming up. The Springold, not so much. There's the second one on the eastern side, so you can't get that critical hit. Still taking hits on some of the Springolds. Massive Mangonel shot coming out on that western side. Villagers trying to repair the Springolds. You really just need 2 here, boys, to make sure you're able to take down those Springolds. That's a Springold going down. Vortex now only has 1. You have the Springold advantage, so that siege isn't going to be as scary as you might think it is, and Vortex has to run in the opposite direction.
Cattle Ranch is getting repaired, hopefully. Yeah, Cattle Ranch being repaired now. And 2 Springles with just the 1. Still heavy Mangonel shots. And the Wham! What's your Springle doing?
It's still alive. I think the Mangonel, he was trying to snipe it out, but it's not going to get there. 1 Manchanique ends up going down. It's 1 Springold to 0. That Manchanique is stuck there, trying to get hits on some of these archers, some of these javelin throwers, and Wham ends up holding it because he kept that Springold alive. That was almost a horrible miss micro. But Wham ended up pulling it together, taking down those Springles. Donzos were able to take down the secondary Springles from Vortex. And now, Vortex tried to push that initiative, tried to get himself in to win this game. Now he's running back with his tail between his legs.
I want to say Springled on Springled Micro is absolutely nerve-wracking. I feel like I lost like probably a fistful of hair just looking at that. Man. Yeah, really, really tough now for Vortex to come back from this. He did add in a second TC now after the fact. He is on 5 relics, 2 sacred sites, so the gold income is looking absolutely great for him. Goulam's now being added in as well, gonna be acting as a great meat shield. We got a little picture-in-picture here telling us that indeed these cattle, they're not in the garrison. They're not garrisoned inside the cattle ranch yet. Still, at the very least, they are still giving over 20 food each from... Oh, never mind.
Yeah,
Wham,
nice.
You know, he's got eyes at the back of Sat, so he heard that one immediately.
And now Vortex is going to be trying to get a little bit of... I mean, he's getting sacred sites with a little bit of map control. I mean, he's got 2 of them. I just don't necessarily think he has as much map control as he thinks he does. You know, just because he was trying to get that offensive and really trying to take down that Malian player and these Malian passive income buildings, but just wasn't able to do it. You know, so he's got to back up a little bit. Military count 74 to 60. Most of what Vortex has are archers. Trying to get a little raid out here at this pit mine. It looks like there's a desert raid or a couple camel lancers that might take down a villager. Now, I've noticed this a lot, Crackety, when playing against the Malians, and I'm sure you do too. You might kill a couple villagers. It doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't really put in a dent in the economy, right? Like the cattle are still gonna be going strong at the end of it. Doesn't make a big difference. And right now, I think Wham actually doesn't have a single villager on food at all. Like this income right now from the cattle, like it's all cattle. 1,000 food per minute, doesn't have a single villager on food.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
There's one under a TC. We spot that guy.
doing the Lord's work in there, trying to take that one sheep all by himself. Thank God in this game there isn't any decay. You know, and a couple of Springles, it looks like, from Wham. He's just going to continue it to push with those Springles. And I feel like as long as he doesn't get hit with a devastating mango shot, and Vortex did have one, you know, but it wasn't enough to try to take down a lot of units. As long as he is able to protect himself from things like Manganique fire, it's going to look really, really good for him. Vortex making an army composition change into Goulams, whereas Wham, he's going to be adding some Musafatis. And I got to tell you, those Goulams, even though they have a solid amount of health, they're not necessarily a DPS unit, and the Musafatis are going to cut them up.
I want to agree, but at the same time, it's mass archers here from Vortex, and I would much rather see Sofas now at this point in time. There aren't any more camels aside from the Dervish, so just getting like a couple of Sofas in not just gives you a very nice front line against the archers, against the Golems, but also gives you a tool in order to be able to dive onto the siege, maybe even get some eco damage in from your own. And yeah, I think that's probably going to be necessary because Vortex now does have that 2 TC play. He's 22 villagers ahead, so the cattle, you know, they kind of equalize on top of that, having 5 relics, 2 sacred sites. That's a hefty amount of passive income. The one thing that Vortex doesn't have going for himself yet, though, is farms. He doesn't really have that perpetual food income.
No, he really doesn't. And I think because Vortex was continuing to try to be aggressive, right? So again, when you're doing things like farm transitioning, you're losing tempo. And that's something the Malians really never need to worry about. And so you don't have to worry about getting all that farm transition with 30 to 40 villagers. You just have your cows and you're pretty much good. Looks like there might be some kind of a big fight coming up here. We have a decent amount of Springles. We got 4 in count for Vortex. We got 2 Manganiques, which could be devastating towards an archer mass. Those poison arrows taking shots heard around the world. Some Donzos have to retreat back as well. And I think Wham just sees all that siege. You see him queue a Springle. A lot of these Goulams, they're starting to get poisoned. So they might be able to go down a little bit quicker. These archers might be able to go down quicker as well. But Wham, just because of how much military he has, he just sent a group of about 20 to 30 Donzos out here to try to take down Ivan villagers at a time when Vortex, he is not making camel lancers anymore. So those Donzos make it up the front line. Who needs them?
Yeah, Wham, getting a decent amount of idle time with that. 20 idle villagers so far, more villagers on the run as well. Also camping out the production buildings here, doing a good job with that. Has to fall back a little bit inside space though. It does have an outpost here with a Springle emplacement. Springle emplacement is going to do a great job against his opponent's Springles if he starts focusing them out instead. Just focusing on the units for the time being. Mangonel might be a little bit exposed here, is going to get taken down. But now we got the Springle Wars. Good shots here from Wham. Taking down most of the Springles. Yeah, I think he's going to get all of them.
Yeah, Wham had the micro for that. And now all of a sudden there's no Springles, so those Maginiques can just sit back there. It doesn't even matter whether they exist or not. Wham is going to be able to have defender's advantage as well. Maginiques trying to get a shot. They're packing, they're unpacking, they're packing, they're unpacking, they're disintegrating. And one of them ends up going down. A second one ends up going down. Springles are getting popped like firewood, but they have done their job. They've done their due diligence. And now all Vortex has is a lot of archers. 83 archers out of the 86 total military mass is wild.
These aren't Addison archers, though. They're Ayubit archers. They don't get that bonus attack speed. They're just normal.
Yeah, there's no composite bows. The Ayubits don't have that technology. So all of these archers are just acting like normal archers.
Yeah, no Mameluke's bravery as well right now. So even if he kills a unit, he doesn't get any bonuses for his units.
I think the one thing, as we're showing in picture, that's the one thing that Vortex really needs. He just needs siege. He just needs more siege, and that's what he's doing. He's building it out in the battlefield. He has a Manjanique here that might be able to get a good shot if Wham isn't paying attention. And it looks like some of those forward archers. Yeah, some of those forward archers are about down to half health, but I think for Vortex now, with how many archers that he has, he's got to be adding something else here. Just having that range mass, just having that backline. I get it. Archers are going to be good against a Malian player with a lot of archers, Musafati, and all that kind of stuff, but you got to be adding something else as a front line.
Yeah. All the passive food income, Wham. He's at almost 2,000 food in the bank right now. Now also plopping down a keep on one of the sacred sites. Really starts to cement his map control. Has almost enough stone for another keep, which certainly will go down on another sacred site there. Just securing the map with those keeps now. And Vortex, he doesn't really... It feels like he just doesn't have the tools that he needs right now in order to come back from this. Raids also killing a lot of villagers there. We'll just have to get pulled in Vortex. He had a lead of roughly like 26, 27, almost up to 30 villagers at one point. Now it's down to 13.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we did say that Vortex went for that second town center over there on the north side. What's really nice is the fact that he has those relics. The fact that he's been able to keep some sacred sites for a significant amount of time was helping him in the economic bonuses. But the thing of it is, just like you said, Crackety, again, no farm transition. He might be allocating a lot of villagers to wood in order to pull that off. But again, if you're doing that and your villagers end up going down, or your military ends up going down, you might not be able to produce it, and that's a good timing for Wham to dive in.
And this is what Wham's doing just now. He's just sending units around, trying to harass on all different sides. Had units at the large goal, is going to be able to kill even more villagers now. Musafati with the picture-in-picture, you can see them also on the berries. Vortex bleeding villagers left, right, front, and center. And now he's going to go for a big attack right when Wham wants to go to Imperial Age from the looks of it.
Yeah, I think for Vortex, he's like, I'm getting raided out. I'm losing a lot of villagers here. I still don't have farms. I think this is put up or shut up time. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And Mangonel from the Malian side taking a big hit. Looks like a lot of those archers are down to half health. All you need is that one really good Mangonel shot. Looks like another one is going to be able to kill maybe about 2 or 3. Good staggered formation from Vortex, just making sure a lot of those end up going down. Gulav's making the front line, getting a charge in, and a little bit of a double tap on some of them archers. And it looks like a keep goes up for the Malians just in time. Wham does on the western side. I mean, if you're Vortex, Crackety, I don't know how you're going to push this.
Yeah, and at the same time, you're still getting pushed on your side. You have to make something happen now, but what can you really make happen now that there's a keep up? You can't really take any favorable trades here. Some archers in the back from Vortex Space are going to be able to deal with the Musafati warriors there for the most part. Has an outpost in there as well. So those do get revealed in case they try any stealthy shenanigans, but it's just so many. No boiling oil though, and now Vortex, he's actually diving deep for this. Has to be careful though, in case the villagers just try and hop out for a second and torch down his siege. And yeah, Greer Barra, no, not Greer Barra, that would be a mistake. Fort of the Huntress is now coming in.
We're just trying to have a nice game of AoE. We're not trying to ruin anyone's lives. That's a great Barra. We didn't need that. 26 villagers going to be making that Fort of the Huntress. And then I think once you add a little bit of Imperial troops, right, you get a little bit of those elite upgrades, it's going to make a world of difference. And at a time when Vortex, he's just continuing to lose villagers left and right. He's just continuing to idle a lot of these. He's trying to get a farm transition. Look at all these fields. They might have been... they might have been go down in their little pillars, but that's pretty much it. Wham hits Imperial because his economy is basically set in stone for the rest of the game. Vortex still having to worry about it. And Vortex still has to worry about it. You can see how much food he has. He's at a little bit less than 100. He wants to make gulams. He can't do it.
Yeah, and Wham, he's pretty much glued to 200 population right now. 200 of 200. Vortex, he's up there as well, but his economy, like when he loses units, he can't easily reproduce them. If Wham loses units, he can. He's got the income. He's getting the upgrades now. More Springles coming in for Vortex. Up to 7 Springles now, but there's keeps absolutely everywhere in Wham's side. And Vortex, sure, Springles are nice to be able to win the Siege War. But are you going to win the Siege War, though, in the end? Because there's keeps and you can't really take them down with just Mangonels and Springles.
And you gotta remember correctly, it's not just the keeps, right? It's the fact that Malian Siege is gonna be a little bit better because you have roller shutter triggers. And that's exactly what Wham is actually researching. Right now, Malians have the ability to make culverins, right? So you can make culverins if you want to. You have the appropriate anti-siege tools as the Imperial Age Mali player to deal with this. So yeah, he has a lot of Springles. He's gonna try to dodge and duck and dive and dip and dodge around all of these different keeps to find an area of attack, but the Springles that he's going to be up against in about 30 seconds, 25, 30 seconds, they're just going to be better.
Yeah, indeed, and this is the fight, actually, that Wham needs to take. He can just chill. He still has another keep landmark there, actually, protecting him. So yeah, definitely not a fight that he needs to take. A little bit of awkward pathing means that he will have to get at least a couple of archer shots in every now and then. But yeah, I mean, Vortex knows that if he doesn't attack now, Royal Shutter Triggers is going to come in. And that is exactly what Wham is waiting for right now. Royal Shutter Triggers is in now. Springle actually gets taken down by the keep. And yeah, Vortex, he can't really make anything happen now. And inside of his base, there are javelin throwers now, killing villagers. And Vortex just in a world of pain right now. Gets some relics out as well.
Yeah, I think Vortex, I mean, his mind right now and what he's thinking is, I have to do some considerable damage because I'm getting hit with considerable damage, and he knows that he's on the back foot. These roller shutter triggers really helping him out. More Springles are getting popped like water balloons. There's no siege left for Vortex, maybe one Springled, and it's going to go down pretty quickly. We have some Manjaniques over there that are going to get popped right next to the Malian Town Center. All of these archers are veteran status, and just normal archers going to be getting hit with elite poisonous arrows of Wham and the Malians, and Vortex will be throwing in the towel after that one. Game goes to Wham and taking 1-0 and a little bit of that momentum heading into game 2.
Man, this was really, really rough. I felt like there was a really great timing there for Vortex. He's got all of the relics. He got so many units out. I think, honestly, from my perspective, it's once again that thing where we saw the Camel Lancer and it was kind of like a little bit of a tunnel vision Camel Lancer play there. If the Ghoulems were there just a little bit earlier, I feel like they would have done much better, especially since at that point in time, it was just Mastonzo. Not really an answer on the field there against Mass Ghoulems.
Yeah, I think what's what's nice about the Malians, too, is, like, you're making the same building to counteract both of them, right? Because if you're going to be getting, if he goes and throws Ghoulems at you in Castle Age, you already have a barracks to make Musafatis anyway, right? So although, you know, you're going to need a solid amount of Musafatis to do it, the Malians still had something in their kit to deal with it, you know? So
Yeah.
with the Iapid player, I mean, yeah, he got to castle a couple minutes early, but it's just, you can get up early and you can get a couple extra villagers and all that good stuff, but if you can't actually disrupt your opponent with that fast castle timing, then what's the point?
Exactly. I mean, it was kind of rough, right? Like the Castle Age came in when Wham didn't even have that many cattle in yet. And I was actually worried there for a little bit. I was like, okay, yeah, there's not even that many cattle. If the aggression comes in straight away, it's going to be really tough for Wham to hold it. Issue was as well, I think maybe Vortex went a little bit too heavily on the relic play. I think that also delayed the aggression quite a bit. 4 archery ranges as well is kind of wild, right? Like 4 archery ranges. It was a just kind of pure ranged army composition, which can work in many ways, in many situations. I don't think it really works against Malian specifically, because sure, other civilizations you can idle out the eco. You can't really effectively kill the cattle in the ranches with the archers, right? Like it's going to take a while in order to get them out there with just arrow fire. And in the meantime, the Malian economy just keeps working.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. I mean, there was a period of time where Vortex, he took down a couple Malian villagers on the gold mine. And I remember saying, and thinking in my head, I was like, I don't care. If I'm a Malian player, I just don't care. Because that's not where my eco is coming from. The only thing that they're not getting passive is wood. Right, so if you're raiding something like a wood line, maybe it'll be beneficial, especially for the Malian player who is making a decent amount of archers. That could have really helped you. But regardless, I mean, the Malians just have such a good ability to hold. And they have such a good ability to keep those passive income buildings not only at home, but safe and continuing to fire. So the Malians, they're just like, hey, come get me, man. You're not going to be able to, but come get me.
Yeah, they can just lean back in those situations, just chill out. They got their ranches. It's all good, man. But now in the next game that we're going to be looking at, we will see once again the Order of the Dragons emerge. We saw the civilization actually the most today. Like we saw China on Archipelago so far today. We saw Order of the Dragon a bunch of times on Archipelago. So far, always up against the French, but now they're going to be facing off against each other.
Yeah, and I think this one's going to be a little different from the last three that we saw, predominantly because French isn't in it. But more importantly, you have two civilizations that do have a bolstered wood economy, right? We talked about the difference between the French and all that kind of stuff. We talked about wood all over again. There's been a lot of wood that's been going on in this series.
Like the snowballs.
Yeah, it's like a snow, but you'll probably get a splinter. With China just getting the IO for the Order of the Dragon, just getting the Akan Chapel, and the fact that their gilded villagers exist, they're going to be able to gather wood pretty quickly. So this is going to be curious for me. This is where I'm going to be like, okay, who actually wins here? Which wood economy or which economy ends up being a little bit better? Number one. Number two, we got to talk about the players for a second too, because we always talk about the Spanish brothers on water, right? We always talk about how effective they are in a micro situation. Is that something, are we overestimating that? Is that something that Wham can hold? Is that something that Wham could deal with as the Chinese? Let's find out.
Yeah, definitely tough. I mean, as soon as that Archon Chapel comes in, those villagers from the HRE, they're getting supercharged for the next 5-6 minutes on their woodline, as long as the woodline is in range of that Archon Chapel. Wood suddenly comes in masses, and we'll have to see if China has what it takes to deal with that in our game number 2. Here we go, Vortex once again spawning in the color yellow. Order of the Dragons is the name of the game for him. On the other hand side, we got Wham playing with the Chinese, and this spawn is one of the more aggressive spawns, I want to say, for Archipelago. Both players, they're quite close to each other. Like if you're on the like western edge from one of the islands, you can pretty much see the other island.
Oh yeah, this one has some spice to it. We saw some of the previous Archipelago games where they spawned basically across the map from each other, but I think just because they spawned closer, it feels like the amount of, or how quickly you're able to get to feudal age is going to make the most difference, right? Because the quicker you get there, you don't have that long to traverse to your opponent. All of a sudden, you can idle your opponent's fishing a lot quicker than it used to be if it was on the other side of the map. As I just heard, I'm not sure who did it, but I just heard either our 5th or 6th scout. Oh my god.
And once again, we have a military graph with no military.
This is I mean, this is such a peaceful game, isn't it? On the coast. We're just looking at the shore, watching the tides come in. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Having the wind blow through your hair, just getting some fish for dinner.
It makes me think of the Titanic pose on the ship, but I don't know why. There was a lot of water associated with the Titanic, and I get
That's true.
Get it. I get that it sank. I know I wasn't there, but I heard the stories. For way I'm going as the Chinese, I'm very curious for you as we're panning over to that area. IO and timings of the IO. For you as a Chinese player, I know you guessed it perfectly on the one previous game that we saw Archipelago on Chinese, but is there a specific build count that you're like, okay, it's IO time now?
It's not really a build time specifically, though I will say that I think, yeah, I mean, it was 9 villagers the last time around. Yeah, I think like right around now when Wham wants to get that that lumber camp out, I think right about now is IO time.
Okay.
For Wham.
And it's probably because for the IO, and it does pop out rather effectively. If you get your straggler trees and you see some of the straggler trees are close, probably when they run out, right, is when you're going to want to get it. Because as soon as you get your lumber camp, you want to make sure it's supervised.
Yeah. Like, as soon as you get the lumber camp in, pretty much that's exactly when you want to have that Imperial official. Right now, he has 9 villagers on wood. So he's getting pretty much like 2 villagers worth of efficiency for free with every single drop-off from these villagers. And both the villager and the Imperial official take the same amount of time to get out from TC, right? And then you're also able to pick up the taxes. Taxes are super important here on these water maps for the Chinese because you're also gathering shoreline fish with a lot of villagers. Shoreline fish is actually the fastest, like villagers gather the fastest from shoreline fish. So there's a lot of drop-offs, meaning they generate a lot of tax, and you're able to use that to propel yourself to the next stage.
Yeah, and I feel like it's especially advantageous on a map like this because your town center spawns right next to the shore where the dock is, right? So it's not like you're using that IO and traversing miles and miles just to collect taxes from the thing. As you can see, Wham is about to do that right now. He's going to drop off 40. He's going to be able to age very quickly.
Yeah, and there we go, Archon Chapel. Oh, that's a water chapel. Imperial Academy also coming in at the same time. Looks like he really wants to boost off the gold and the wood, but it's also a little bit dangerous because if he gets pushed back in like the next 5 minutes, well, not 5 minutes, I won't say the next like 2-3 minutes. The timing window isn't actually that big. That could be some pretty hefty losses he could incur there.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this is our 4th time on Archipelago. We got to talk about the spawns. You know, I mean, for Vortex, he's got to put that Archon Chapel out there. He's got to put it out in the front because his gold is there, right? His gold is forward, and then that wood line's a little bit forward. I think you might be able to get an aeroship over there, light junk over there for Wham, to try to disrupt that wood line or the gold mine. For Wham, not so much. I mean, he does have a wood that's a little bit more forward on the eastern side, but at least he's got his gold in the back, where Vortex has pretty much everything up there.
It is a pretty awkward spawn here for him with the Order of the Dragon. Just getting forced into that position where you have to put your Archon over there. And like his gold is pretty much like in the water, right? So he cannot, and I want to really make sure that the viewers understand this, he cannot afford to get pushed back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if he does get pushed back, or even just in that particular area, right? Game's over. You know, you're not going to be able to produce anything out of that. And Wham, just because you got the feudal age first, will be getting that aeroship out, that light junk out a little bit first. Vortex will be following, so a lot of these fights will be taken around.
Wham didn't scout it yet. He doesn't expect his opponent to be so close to him. He's going the wrong way. He's going the wrong way.
Oh my god! I think Vortex. Honestly, Vortex probably does have a clue of where Wham is because I saw there was a yellow dot that was morphing on the western side. You can see it. So now, just because of the scouting, or lack thereof, I should say, there's going to be battles on the Chinese side instead of Order of the Dragon. That's actually pretty massive.
Yeah, it does make a pretty big difference here. But now, Archership is going to be coming back, but there's already at the same time a Hulk out for Vortex. So he's going to be able to defend that quite easily. Oh, Wham didn't pay attention there for a second. Yeah, I think that one's going to go down.
Yeah, I think that will. I mean, this just goes to show how important micro is on this map. That is a dead light junk, and that's a little bit of wasted resources. And now, demo ship from Wham trying to take a look at one of these hulks from the Order of the Dragon. And it looks like it might be able to. Archer ship doing a little bit of trying to get rid of that demo. Not quite going to be able to get there. Fishing boats are going to be able to repair that galley just to make sure everything's okay. Wham doesn't necessarily feel comfortable about taking down some of these hulks. He's going to be backing up.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about how bad it would have been for Vortex to get pushed back. It's not going to be happening, so he doesn't have to worry about that for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully for Vortex's sake, it doesn't. Right? Hopefully it doesn't happen. You can take a look at wood economies over there on the top left and right portions of your screen. It looks like Order of the Dragon doing a little bit better in terms of some of that wood economy. Is at about 700, 750 wood per minute, whereas Wham is hovering around the 600, and you can see how that translates militaristically, right? With a military count of 15 to 11 in favor of Vortex. So for Wham, you know, when you're in this situation, and I think just because we've seen this over and over again, Crackety, when you're in a defensive situation, when you're playing on water, what are some of the things you can do to claw yourself back in?
I mean, on water, you always, like, if you're in a situation where you're behind, you got to be looking towards demo ships. demo ships are like the one thing that can really just suddenly swing the tide of a situation on water.
Yeah, that looks
Speaking
like,
of demo
honestly,
ships,
yeah, for Wham, I mean, he's got one, but that's pretty much it. He does have a light junk that might be able to take down that demo ship, but Vortex does a phenomenal job of microing that thing. That demo ship is right there. Two of these ships, well, just about two of those ships end up going down. The fishing eco ends up getting idle, and three of them end up going down. Vortex does a fantastic job of picking the correct ship in order to take down. There's another demo ship from Order of the Dragon coming in on the northern side, and it looks like that big war junk will be able to go down with a couple more Springald bolts, and it does. Military count for Vortex, 23. Wham, hovering more so in the 20s, but again, he's got a lot of things like demo ships. He's looking for a good point of contact, not quite getting there, and all of it did is just made a really good fireworks display. Wham is like, I don't have demo ships, I don't have war junks, I don't have anything. I'll see you in game 3.
and the Spanish bros on water, man, like, leave it to them. Leave it to them to really just take a water map like quickly for themselves. That was insanely quick. And that against one of the best water civilizations as well, with China against Order of the Dragon. Man, that just completely took Wham by surprise, I feel like. It's kind of an unfortunate start, right? Like, Wham went into the wrong direction with his archer ship, lost it kind of for free there, and yeah, paid the price for that.
You know, it did. It did pay the price, but I don't know if that was necessarily the game-ending thing, you know, because even though, yeah, he could have took fights more so on the Order of the Dragon side. I think for Vortex, he just had a better economy, so he was able to he would have been able to, with defender's advantage, repel what Wham had anyway.
Yeah, it probably. Like, looking at the military graph there, right? Like, it just shot up there, and the micro for the Spanish brothers, it's just so on point every time we see it on those water maps, and able to win game number 2 there on water, does manage to equal out the series. And next up, we're going to be moving over to Kawasan. It's the same matchup, the very same matchup that we saw earlier between Papipaw and Lucifron. Was the match point for Lucifron then? Right now, the set is still even. The question is, will Japan do something a little bit different here, try to spice things up? Because last time it really didn't work out too well for Papipaw.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're looking at what Vortex and Lucifron are doing, obviously they're talking with one another, you know? So Lucifron's going to be like, hey, you just saw that game. What happened with Papipaw with Japan on Abbasid? Why don't you go ahead and do that? And we'll meet each other in the semifinals. So I don't expect Vortex's plan to change as compared to Lucifron. Obviously, they're practice partners, they're brothers. And because of how well it transpired over the first game for Wham, however, he just saw what his brother did, and he's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. Seems kind of rough. So maybe he ends up going for something a little bit different.
Yeah, with some luck, he spots out where the pond is that Vortex is going to go for and just chooses to dock the other one.
Yeah, I mean,
like, that could buy him some time.
I thought it was pretty interesting that Lucifron and Papipaw in the last game, they docked in the same place, you know, and I don't know if that's stereotypical of how Kawasan works, but I would think if you have one of your pawns and the other side has another one, maybe that game ends up going on a little bit longer, you know, and those points of interest become throughout the entirety of the game, whereas what we saw from Lucifron and Puppy, it ended up just being a mainstay of the first 10 or 11 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if the pawns are the different ones as well, then you also have more of an opportunity to get a play in with the shinobis, because then you immediately have like like 2 different points that you can really go for attack, and with the superior mobility of the shinobi, might be able to set the dock on fire without like investing a crazy amount into shinobi afterwards, right? Like, in the last game that we saw there, Papipaw, he just invested a lot in shinobi. I think he had like 5 or 6 overall that he created. That's a lot of resource that go into them.
Yeah, they are. I mean, if I remember correctly, they're 60 food, 60 gold, correct? So
Yeah,
120
exactly.
resources that you're throwing in there, and they might end up going down with nothing to show for it. We'll see if Wham could do a little bit better with those. The shinobi will be spawning in as the Japanese in the color red, spawning in the southeastern part of the map. His opponent for this series and this game number 3 playing as the Abbassid is the Vortex in the color yellow, and it looks like we're going to see another dock on both are going to be on the same pond.
Oh,
But
there
now
we go.
Wham
No,
has
Wham
a
doesn't want
different
that.
plan.
We talked about it, man. Yeah, he doesn't want that. He doesn't want to dock the same pond, and there he goes, now opting in for that other pond.
Yeah, I think this is the best chance for him to win. Right. I mean, you just saw how the Abbasid Dynasty throttled Japanese in the last series. So obviously, why are we going to make history repeat itself? Especially when we don't have the necessary. It's not necessary to do it. So getting that pond, even though it's a little bit delayed, might be able to help him out because for the Abbasid Dynasty again, takes a little bit of time. A little bit of time to get up to that feudal age. So maybe Wham can try to get something going in that early feudal age situation.
Yeah, definitely at least gonna have some better tools when it comes to that. Question is, how much are these players gonna be investing onto water here? Last time we saw both players only going for 3 fishing ships and then straight up to feudal age. Question is, are we gonna see something similar here from them, or will we see a little bit more of an investment into those fishing ships early on? Looks like nope. Wham and Vortex, both of them straight up to feudal age. Nothing left on wood anymore for these players.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when you're playing as the Japanese. As we take a look at the dock, I'm curious to see how many fishing boats are in queue, and how many he was able to get for the amount of wood. I would imagine. Yeah, I would imagine it's probably somewhere around 3. No, he's got 2
just
of them
2.
going. Okay.
3 for Vortex.
Just being able to at least get some kind of foundation on one of those ponds is going to be obviously ultimate value for you. And I think it's just because of how big that land bridge is in the middle, how mixed the Kawasan ponds are, especially because they're in the middle of the map. And feudal age and getting some kind of land units are more important than the other hybrid maps that we see.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so far this game looks to be playing out very, very similar to the last Kawasan game that we saw, which makes sense, right? Like, Wham and Puppy Paw, they're twins. Vortex and Lucifron, they're brothers. They both practice together. So having them now play off against each other for the games to be very, very similar, it's not really a big surprise.
No, I would imagine it's not, just because Wham did have to delay where his dock went. Takes a little bit of time for him to age up to feudal age, but Military Wing going to be coming in for Vortex, and we saw how important it was to have those 2 archers exist. How good that those archers were able to take down Shinobi. Wham going to go with the Coca Township as well. But I don't think there's going to be as much urgency that there was in the prior game, just because we're docking on different ponds, right? So the Military Wing might do a little bit, it just make sure that his dock is protected, but the Shinobi aren't so pressed on sabotaging something immediately.
I think, just judging from the player Vortex is, that we're probably very soon going to see villagers moving out from Vortex to dock on Wham's side now very, very soon. I don't think Wham is going to dock Vortex's side, but yeah, Vortex is going to immediately dock Wham's side, I feel like, just in order to, like, as soon as feudal age hits, he immediately wants to get ships in. There it is, docks coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if it's immediately a double dock situation.
I mean, he certainly will have the wood for it, right? I mean, it's only 75 wood. So if he wants to get a second dock, he will have the ability to. For Wham, probably not so much. It looks like that villager from Wham did see that dock was coming up. It's good that he pulled 2, because I think if he just pulled 1, it would have been a recipe for a disaster. It looks like that villager from Wham might end up going down if it's not careful, and it is careful enough. It looks like that scout might be microed out of there at some point as well, but the dock will go up. There's nothing to stop it from going up.
Yeah, dock indeed will go up, but second dock here for Vortex might also be on the menu. Wham, still no ship queued up yet. Needs a little bit more wood. Additional, just 1 Shinobi so far in queue. There we go, has the wood, needs to queue a ship soon. And it's gonna be a Springle ship immediately. Bakla also coming in for Vortex, but a little bit quicker even. Which is surprising considering he went for 2 docks, right? But yeah, we're in the same situation again where Shinobis can't really deal with this free military. Like, you get a free military from... Oh, God. He's doing it to him as well.
Oh, come on, man. Now you're just showing off.
But yeah, Shinobi can't really deal well with the free units that the Abbasid get.
No,
Wait,
because
it looks like Wham just canceled. Wham just canceled the ship. He's just gonna straight up go for the other pond there. I think this is smart actually, because now Vortex invested into double dock there. All the units are on that side, and now Wham has the opportunity to heavily commit into this dock instead. Yeah, Sabotage is in as well, so he's gonna be in a position to get the ships out first.
Yeah, he definitely could. I think he definitely could. I think one of the things that we might have forgotten as the Opposite Dynasty, I know you mentioned it a little bit in the prior series, but these military wing units, I mean, although it could be a hefty amount of wood, they could just ram and take down docks. You know, there's really nothing that's going to stop them from doing so. Shinobi are trying to get in on some of these archers. One archer ends up going down. A second archer will able to repel that secondary Shinobi, and it begs the question, just because you had half your archer mass go down in that one archer, are you going to get in archery range? Are you going to start to get a little bit more of them?
Archer ship is going to be able to make quick work of that archer, and now Shinobi has to make its way over soon, very quick to the other dock. Oh my god, I think Vortex actually canceled the ship, because now Shinobi's going to be in time for another sabotage.
Yeah, I don't think that it might not go up. Let's see if it gets that sabotage, and it does. That backlog is going to be sitting there on 9 seconds, and it'll take a little bit of time for him to get there now. With Wham having those 2 docks, that's really, really, really going to help him out. Just making sure he's able to take some kind of pond at all. It looks like Wham tried to get a sprinkled ship over there. It might have been just a little bit of a waste of resources. There was a demo ship over there for Vortex and being able to take it out.
Oh no, Vortex, he's making a ram. Wham has Shinobis. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, he's making a little ram over here. Wow. And I'm kind of curious, and I mean, you see, just because it's a little bit out of harm's way, the Shinobi aren't necessarily going to find it. But maybe just having an archer or two in that particular situation, it just means those Shinobi might not be able to take it down. More sabotage over there on the northwestern side for Vortex. That dock is very not long for this world, and it looks like we had a little bit of a pawn trade.
Yeah. And overall, I just like the situation a lot more now for Wham, because he, as a Japanese, just has the ability to reboom very, very quickly or very efficiently on water with the cheaper fishing ships. Ram has been completed. Vortex is sending 2 villagers around, wants to get another dock up, but now that the fishing ships are there for Wham, he should have the vision. Has a demo ship there as well, and the Shinobi are still nearby. Ram is now coming in, though. But that also could be easily dealt with when the Shinobi come up.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to have to see the result of this ram, right? I mean, if the ram is going to be able to take down some docks, hopefully the Shinobi are going to be able to provide some reinforcements, and Wham is going to be adding a little bit of military units on his own. You know, he has a stable, and it looks like he's queuing 1 or 2 horsemen that should help him out, just in case if Vortex decides to make archers, and it's really good for him because he did. He did end up making some. He's got 2. He's got an archery range. He's got another one in the queue. It looks like Vortex trying to add that dock over there on this pond on the northwestern side. Ram does go down. Wham did a really good job at defending this. He's going to keep this pond for now.
Yeah, just overall needing to make sure here that this pond is not going to go over to Vortex. Doesn't want to get into that situation that his brother was in, where he didn't have a single pond going for himself. And now, with access to a pond, Japan is going to be in a pretty good situation here, in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, they definitely are. That Shinobi, oh my god, that Shinobi took down a couple spearmen to help with that archer ship. That's really, really important, just because you're not getting that much in terms of resources. But you're right about this reboom, Crackety. I mean, all of the fact that the Japanese is able to do this, you can see which side is closer to Castle Age and which one isn't, right? And I think a lot of that is because Wham, he doesn't need that much wood. So he's able to get more food, he's able to get more gold, he's going to be able to float his gate in no time.
Oh, looks like both players here try to go for a little bit of a fast Castle Age play. Outpost is now coming up for Vortex. Might actually lose a villager for it when the horsemen come in here now.
Yeah, looks like
kidding. Horseman pathing isn't gonna do shit.
It tried to do something, but it didn't end up working. I mean, the outpost, maybe it just created a little bit of idle time making the tower and all that kind of stuff, but 1200
times worth it.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, you didn't lose any units, right? So
what's
now
Vortex doing? Look at the far south side. There's some yellow dots moving around. Are those villagers? At far bottom side, next to the stone. Oh, 2 archers.
Huh. Okay. Could just do a little bit of discombobulation maybe from Wham. You know, he's got berries there. He's got a wood line over there. A couple archers might be worth their weight in gold, but Wham going to be able to get that floating gate, and we'll be able to get it a little bit quicker because again, for the opposite, it's going to be that minute 45 seconds to try to get up to the Cotra wing. Vortex trying to wall up, much like his brother did in the past series, but it doesn't look like it's going to be as good as it was previously. Woodline is going to have to get vacated. Horsemen are going to be able to shield from a little bit of that town center fire just to create a little bit of duress. Vortex archers on the south side, again, trying to take down those berries a little bit, but they don't necessarily have that mobility and that raiding potential like Wham's horsemen do.
Yeah, exactly. The archers, they're going around now. They might actually get some villagers or do some damage onto the gold there, but there's already an outpost out and floating gate. As soon as that completes, Yoshiro gets deployed. Like yeah, and there's a single horseman as well to get rid of them. There you go. Yoshiro immediately gets deployed. Actually, no, Wham's house right now. He doesn't get the Yoshiro monk out immediately. There we go.
Yeah, and now, I mean, for your Wham, and you have that gate up, it'll take about another half minute for Vortex to hit the castle age. It's go time. You know, get that Yoshiro in the stable, which is exactly what he does. He's going to get these mounted samurai. He has some horsemen here just to make sure that there's some kind of hole in the wall, and that's prime time for those mounted samurai to get in there. I feel like Wham, obviously, compared to this last series, Wham is handling this a lot better. If he can do a lot of damage with some of those mounted samurai, kill some villagers, he's going to be in a great spot.
Yeah, the issue I see right now, though, is Vortex. He's aging up with enough resource to pretty much age up again. If he has enough production, he can definitely keep up with this. And look at that, immediately queues up 6 knights. I would have expected knights as well as some crossbows. No crossbows coming out yet, though. He does have the archer range for that.
I was expecting some... but just like, look at the amount of knights he's able to queue up. And now he's got 4 stables. And is going to be adding a blacksmith. He is getting preservation and knowledge, so making sure you're writing stuff down as the opposite dynasty. You're going to be able to get those technologies a little bit quicker. Mounted Samurai going to vacate that wood line over on the south side, but again, no villagers are going down. So he's creating a little bit of idle time, but he's not doing that power of devastation that we really need the Japanese to do in this castle age.
Oh man, we're also getting the Bannerman, the Uma Bannerman coming in right now as well for the Japanese. It's going to be a lot of additional damage there for these mounted samurai. Uma Bannerman is also incredibly tanky. He has like 270-ish health in, 270 health in Castle Age. That's a lot more health than a normal knight.
It's a really strong unit, not just for the aura, right? And Wham, he's trying to get some kind of villager kills, and it looks like he will be able to charge that one villager, and it'll end up going down. But what's really great is, for these mounted samurai, all you got to do is wait a little bit of time. You know, Vortex is trying to get a charge to reset, but I think after 8 seconds, that deflective armor is going to come back in. So it means these raiding units are going to be able to stay alive a little bit longer, which is huge for Wham. He's attacking from every single angle, and now we got a camel rider approaching over there on the western side. That camel rider is going to add some unease in these samurai, no matter how much you're able to deflect.
Stealth Forest, Vortex losing track there of the military from Wham. And once again, gold is getting idled out here. Behind this, Wham also adding in his own spearman now. Probably with the Yoshiro as well inside of it. So spearman will be coming out super, super quickly here. And right now, military 28-18. Favoring Wham.
Yeah, it is favoring Wham, but I feel like a lot of those units are spearmen that are rather cheap, right? They're rather inexpensive, whereas Vortex, he's adding a couple camel riders, which is going to help him out a little bit. Wham going to be losing some of these mounted samurai, probably not at a time when he necessarily wanted to. He could have used those 3 or 4 mounted samurai in upcoming battles, but then when you see some of these camel riders here from Vortex, when you're Wham, it's very difficult because it seems like for people that play Japanese, you really, really don't want to make Yumi, I feel like.
Yeah, and in most situations, it just doesn't feel good, especially when you're up against the Abbasid with the military wing, right? Like, they can just get composite bows, and their archers are just not just superior baseline, but superior on a whole nother level. Mounted samurai here, not taking the greatest fight. Again, but the knights are pretty weak.
I mean, these are battles we see Wham did that. That was the second time that we saw Wham do that. It looks like 4 or 5 mounted samurai. ended up going down. And it's something that once you get into a battle, once you get into an engagement, it's probably something that you might want. Vortex making an army composition change, adding some archery ranges. We'll be adding some archers. We're going to get veteran archers here as well. Now Wham is able to see it, so maybe he might think about getting some different units, but his spearmen are of the castellated variety. They can take a little bit of those arrow hits, and it looks like they will be with one Lancer from the Abbasid dynasty ending up going down. That wolf really doesn't want that religious artifact to go in the hands of the Japanese, and that Shinto priest just said his last prayer.
Yeah, that wolf, that was personal. That was just straight up personal between the wolf and that monk. Vortex is going to be able to secure one of the relics here. Wham's going to have to be a little bit careful there. Actually gets a camel answer for his trouble. Okay, he's going to lose the spear so, unfortunately. Yeah, veterancy is now in for Vortex's archer as well, so they will do a lot more damage. Sprinkle placement is in the outpost. And that's not really something that Vortex really wants to fight with right now.
No, they definitely don't. It looks like Vortex was trying to hide that relic and keep it for safekeeping. A little bit of a Wololo from the Abbasid dynasty on that wood line, trying to make sure the villagers end up becoming safe, and they do. Looks like some of the other villagers from the Abbasid on the eastern side have to run for their lives for just a little bit. Military count continuing to stay high for the Japanese player. It's 41 to 30. Some spearmen trying to take down the dock, but end up going in an opposite direction. A lot of these mounted samurai looking for villagers to go at, but for the Abbasid dynasty, a lot of their stuff is on water, right? They have a lot of their food economy. Their wood line is kind of difficult to get a handle on, so, you know, the ability for Wham to actually do some raiding not really helping out too much. Trying to get rid of this outpost with the springhold emplacement. Just having those 3 or 4 camels. I feel like this is really, they're becoming an MVP of this fight.
Yeah, both players right now, they really want to have access to those berries. Wham started off with that house in the middle. So he's been on the berries for a while, and now Vortex says, nah, Mother said playtime's over. We gotta switch now. Villagers from the wood line already evacuated. Mounted Samurai from Vortex won't find any value there. And Wham is now also switching into Samurai. Just normal Samurai. Samurai with no horse.
Yeah, they're gonna start leaving the horses at home, and that makes sense just because of the fact that these camel riders exist. For the Japanese now, I always see this a lot because when you get to Castellate, you get to Mounted Samurai because pound for pound, that's the best use out of your Yoroshiver, right? It's the best use of popping it into that stable or any other military production building. But now as you start to creep up in the villager count, once you start to creep up in that villager count, it just means you're going to be able to spam out of a lot of barracks. So we're going to see this end stage kind of Japanese spam where we got some spearmen, we got some samurai. Maybe he adds a couple Onabugishas here as well because everybody loves a good Onabugisha.
No ranged blacksmith upgrades at all yet for Vortex, so the samurai, they aren't going to take a lot of damage here from these archers, not at all. And now Wham, he's just pushing in. That's a lot of idle time.
Wow. Look at how many villagers had to leave out of those berries, because for the rest of the map, I mean, there's a deer pack that's over there on the western side, but it doesn't look predominantly safe. Looks like we're going to get a little bit of a flank over here from this raiding unit. Maybe some villagers end up going down, but they're going to continue to stay idle. I really like this fight. If I'm looking at Wham here, he's got some samurai that don't get that bonus damage from those camel riders. The mounted samurai might end up going down in the process, but there's a little bit of spears here that are going to help out. Vortex out of those archery ranges, starting to make some crossbowmen, and we'll be making short work of those samurai. Now that you have that DPS unit against those samurai, those crossbowmen popping out of the archery range, the samurai end up going down.
Yeah, some units were also heavily suffering there from the melee brain syndrome, so Vortex is going to be able to get the clear up there. Wham still having a lot of military. Yeah, I didn't expect that fight to go so well for Vortex, actually.
I did not either. Definitely. I thought that could have been a game ender for Wham, but he still has an economic lead, right? So he's going to be able to produce a lot. And again, out of these barracks, he's just streaming samurai. I mean, he saw predominantly archers, and he saw some of these camo riders, but now that Vortex is starting to add crossbowmen, maybe we add something else along with these samurai. I don't know if the crossbowman math is enough, though. He's got about 7 in total. Wham is going to be adding some siege superiority, adding a mangonel as well, trying to take a hit on some of those archers, and that's a pretty good hit, actually.
Yeah, suddenly the front line is kind of falling here for Vortex, and with the mangonel, he has an answer to the range units as well. Has to be careful, the villagers are making a move for it. Nope, they think twice about it.
again, these are more worker kills for Wham, right? I mean, economic count now 81 to 64. More of them are going down. Vortex is like, I don't have food. I don't have this game. He taps out.
Was there another raid on the gold? I don't think it was quite early enough for Vortex to call this one, but yeah, GG gets called. And with that, Wham is gonna find himself in the lead.
Yeah, I love that. I love that switch from Wham trying to go into Samurai. You know, his ability to pump Samurai out was so much better than the ability for Vortex to pump out Crossbowman. And I think just because Vortex was struggling, I mean, obviously, you know, he was able to have on his pond, he was able to get some of those deep water fish. It just didn't end up being enough. He had to allocate a lot of villagers on those berry packs that were forward, and he just didn't have the map control.
All right.
An interesting result, lads, because all of a sudden Wham, looking to kind of break the cycle here, finds himself on match point first, but we're not done yet. Potentially 2 more games ahead of us. But let's look back at what's happened in the last 3. An interesting opening game actually coming out there, Crackety on Gorge. I feel like looking back at that game, I can't tell if it was just Wham playing incredibly well or if this is just the absurdity of the Malians, but that hold and then fold, I feel like we see that a lot from Malians, and they almost feel like one of maybe 2 or 3 civs that are even capable of that type of feat.
Yeah, I mean, for the Malians, right? Like, it's getting to that point where the cattle are in, and after that, you just gotta hold. As long as your opponent isn't gonna be on 2 TC, you're fine just being in the defensive. If your opponent is on 2 TC, then they're not in a position anyways to really deny your cow boom or really put on immediate aggression onto you. And it was kind of like that situation, right? Like, sure, Vortex had a really good game plan going for him there. He had all the relics, he had sacred sites, had a ton of units, started off with the siege. But I think he kind of rushed it in at one point a little bit too much. If he just went for like a second Manjanique and really just take down the cattle ranchers, take them down immediately, I think with the timing that he had, he could have actually been in a position to take down like 2 cattle ranches and deny a majority of the food income there from Wham.
Now, that's interesting to think about, right? Vortex, just historically one of the most aggressive players we've seen in the history of Age of Empires 4. Begs the question, Tim, going forward into King of the Hill, is that going to be something that can be seen as an advantage or a disadvantage?
You know, that's a that's a really good question, KP, and I'm kind of looking at how important this game is. You know, it's a rather monumental game for not only because there's a hill and we're going to be crowning a king on it, but because of taking a look at Game 5 and some of the civilization matchups that can happen on Game 5. You know, we have Rus and Mongols for Vortex, and then we have Jeanne d'Arc and French for Wham. Looking pretty good. If you're a Vortex, it's looking pretty good for game number 5. So in this one, you know, this is I want to pitch a question to Crackety here. While I have the floor, the ability for the Ottomans, because Ottomans are not something that I've seen on ranked ladder a lot. Probably because they got nerfed. You know, a lot of the people in my elo, they're like, well, they got nerfed, they're bad now. And you know, we don't, you know how Diamond goes. We don't really understand the game that well. But with Ottomans going up against Delhi, Ottomans used to really kick Delhi just because of their ability to actually they're able to get their blacksmiths up and get their military schools, and they're able to do it rather quickly. They had the vizier point in order to get them and propel them to try to get a meter. With the little bit of nerfs that the Ottomans had in the vizier points going down a little bit and getting nerfed, they can't necessarily get off the ground in feudal as quickly as they should. Do you still like Ottomans in this matchup, or do you think it's shifted towards the Delhi?
I think Ottomans overall, they are favored in if the game gets played a little bit slower. I don't think it's going to be played a lot slower here. Imagine if the vizier points come in a little bit quicker and you're getting the Janissary vizier point. Ghazi Raiders are some of the strongest cavalry units next to the Sipahi in feudal age, of course. And having those Janissaries in there, they got insane attack speed. Pretty much every single volley, every second, a Ghazi Raider dies. And in the slow game, I think Ottomans are superior. However, in the fast game, with the time pressure, I think Delhi can really be a little bit of oppressive here against the Ottomans.
I mean, does it even get to that stage where you're relying too much on Ghazi, right? Because what I'm seeing before us is a claustrophobic map, one where infantry comps just might be the most viable source. Archers walling on that high ground, right? We've seen Delhi players do it a dime a dozen. I'm wondering, maybe Crackety, do we see a different angle here? Because I know there's been a rise of an alternate way of playing Ottomans, right? The trade network is starting to become very popular. That could give a blacksmith's edge. Dare I say something like a delayed 2TC play, or is that maybe too gluttonous against the Delhi?
I think it has to be a fast castle age from Wham.
Mhm.
No other option, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so
if
he's
when
just
you're,
gonna snooze.
I feel like Crackety. I think you're right. I mean, for the Ottomans, I think now they're at a point where when it comes to feudal age, I'm just kind of cool with skipping it, and we'll just hit you, and we'll just hit you up and
Hold on a
castle
sec.
it.
Hold on a sec. Earlier on, you're like, I love the whole meta being feudal. Everyone's playing feudal. Now Tim has been turned to the dark side of Castle Age rushes. Truly, this day has gone full turn, but we're going to have to see if it can actually get 1+1 more game on the board, or if it ends here. Can Wham break the cycle? The vicious back and forth between him and Vortex. Can he keep the NA dream alive? Or is the Spaniard going to make him sweat? It's King of the Hill time. Are we crowning a king?
Game number 4. Vortex, color yellow, the usual spiel here. Wham in the color red, Ottomans. And he is not going to be opening up with a military school. Makes a lot of sense. You don't really achieve a lot in this matchup with a military school anyway, so might as well just not go for it.
God, I mean, KP with that introduction, I'm ready to run up that hill for him. That's just a good one. But you're exactly right with military school in the Ottomans, because you're thinking about, you get that spearman out. It's probably about 2 minutes in there, right? You get the spearman out there. It probably takes about 2:45. Vortex already has the gold that he needs to age up. What's the point, right? So you're probably not going to be getting too much in that regard. And I think for the Ottomans, it really is. It could slow you down. When you're thinking about doing stuff like getting a fast castle time. I know sometimes you see a military school, sometimes you don't. But if you're looking to try to get that fast castle time, you kind of just want to get there as fast as possible. But Delhi, I mean, we know how Sanctity works. We know how Sanctity exists, and you're going to be able to take that sacred site rather quickly. And it could be to a point, depending on how Vortex does his build, it could be to the point where 7 minutes in, and you already have a scholar trying to cap that thing. All of a sudden, there's 10 minutes left of the game.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Vortex, he does know Delhi's ins and outs, and he will find the most optimal way of getting Sanctity in and get just that immense timing here. Oh, Vortex, be careful. Yeah, okay, he does realize. Don't want to run that scout into the TC. Awkward woodline there would have forced it to happen that way. And actually, looking at the spawn, we do have one of like those a little bit more closed off spawns here for King of the Hill. So there are cliffs in between the players and the actual sacred site in the middle. And it is indeed going to be Sultanahli Trade Network. Excellent choice here if you do want to go for that Castle Age rush. Even if your opponent tries to deny your gold, you're still going to be getting in a trickle and even have a market if you want to trade out some resources.
And that's kind of the one thing, and I really like maybe Vortex or Wham, I should say, is playing more the map than anything else, because if you take a look at his spawn, his gold is really forward. It's like as close to Vortex's starting town center as it possibly could be for this map. So if you have something like the Sultani Trade Network and you're making sure you're getting your gold that way instead of that forward gold, which could be a very devastating area for some of your villagers if they choose to mine in that area, could be rather beneficial for you too.
Maybe Wham will prove us wrong. He is now gathering up some stones, so might be a little bit more of a feudal age play after all here from him.
And if he does, it's kind of interesting, all right, with the Sultani Trade Network, because you're thinking about the other landmark that we haven't talked about, the Twin Minaret, just making sure that you're getting those berry bushes and the rather effective food gathering. It just means it translates to more military units going forward. With the gold, not so much, right? With the gold, not so much. So we'll see if he ends up, maybe he just wants to get a little bit of military, at least, to kind of disrupt Delhi a little bit. Not necessarily to win the game with it, but just don't let Delhi just run all over the map.
I feel like if he wanted to do that, he would still have at least a couple of villagers over on gold. Like, not even having villagers on gold right now in order to get any of the economic upgrades just kind of tells me, okay, he wants to get units out ASAP. And it's going to be that 2 military school build here from the Ottomans, and probably followed immediately with some more production buildings as well.
Yeah, I mean,
more wood.
For how much wood that he's gathering, right? I think one of the important things, just because honestly, this is kind of a refresher for me because of how infrequently I see the Ottomans anymore. All of their production buildings, their blacksmith, archery ranges, stables, all that kind of stuff. It's 100 wood, right? So you still need a decent amount of wood to get all of these buildings, your blacksmith, all of that kind of stuff, and your military schools take a decent amount of wood, but you know, you have a little bit of a leeway while you're trying to get them, which is very beneficial.
And I think right now Wham's main game plan is he wants to deny that immediate sacred site capturing here from Vortex. So yeah, Zapahi is going to be the name of the game here from him. Also, we do see that Ghazi Raiders are going to be on the menu for Vortex. Usually Delhi, they like to, or at most they like to go for Ghazi Raider Intermediate Archer here. I think in this situation he has to go for Ghazi Raider and some Spearmen, just in order to really make sure that he can go for the play with the Sacred Site as early as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think just because that Sacred Site is a static point of interest, right? So when you're using things like mobile units and you're doing things like Sapahi and Ghazi Raiders and all of that kind of stuff, the mobility of them kind of gets negated because that Sacred Site's always in the same place, right? So if you're adding a little bit of Spearmen, it's really going to help you in the middle. Hopefully, Wham probably will have more flexibility in order to do that for the Delhi Sultanate. Sometimes when they have their first couple production buildings, it's really, really important that they continue to stick with it, because if you don't, then you're going to end up just idling on a lot of your time, because again, they don't get that discount on their military production buildings. It's still 150 wood.
He's making archers instead. Feels like a bit of a mistake, because now Wham can just literally stick to Sapahi only.
And I think with the stable that he has, he could even add another stable if he wanted to. He would be able to counteract the efficient production that Vortex has, right? It's a stable that is producing well, obviously, but having those military schools and Ottoman's own stable, is that enough? I think it might be.
Yeah. As we see point now as well, definitely, yeah, right choice, getting those additional sheep in nice and early. Instead, Wham, even though he didn't go for the food landmark, he will have an ample amount of food safely secured under his TC.
And, you know, on paper, this is what makes me think that the Ottomans are still okay in feudal, even though there's a little bit of a delay from them. Because when you're trying to get up to Castle Age, and it looks like that's what Wham is doing, he's only getting a couple of Sapahi, he's going to be using the military schools to help you. It just means you're not completely defenseless. And you can get a little bit more greedy while going up. That gold mine continuing to be a problem, as we kind of talked about in Dark Age, creating some villager idle time, so the Sultani trade network really helping him out. And because of Anatolian Hills, he's going to be able to continue to stay in his base, right? And continue to use some of those sheep to try to get to Castle Age. Sacred Site, now they're starting to get captured. And all of a sudden, tick-tock.
7:35, good timing, considering that Vortex even had one of his scholars out in one of his production buildings. Sapahi might want to try and just go for the dive on the scholar. Like, if you just let that go up, if you let him take that Sacred Site, you're gonna be hard pressed when it comes to actually taking it back. Instead, looks like it is gonna go up. Nope, one Sapahi on there. On the Sacred Side. Vortex is gonna have to pull military back. Even activated Fortitude, but there were Ghazi Raiders on there, and Fortitude actually hurts him now. If he didn't activate Fortitude there, maybe he would have been in a position to actually take that scholar down. Sad. Gotta lose one of his Sapahi. These are very costly units, also take a long time to produce. Also,
yeah,
not quite as fast as Ghazi Raiders.
I mean, you can kind of see the difference in game plan, right? There's a military count of 20 to 4. You can see what Wham is macroing towards. In about 8 minutes 40, something like that, he might be able to garrison that gold mine, continuing to be a problem for Wham. It looks like he can only put 5 villagers on there just because of the outpost, but will be going up to Castle Age eventually. And in about 9 minutes, something like that, it's going to give him a little bit of time. This is a situation for Delhi. I mean, like, yeah, there's one Sacred Site, and you put your opponent on a timer, which is fantastic. The MIA is coming up for Wham. You still only have one Sacred Site. So you're still only getting that little bit of trickle of gold. It's not like having 3 Sacred Sites where it's a big deal, you know? Having that one Sacred Site means you might have to, if you want to meet your opponent in Castle, you may need to put your own villagers on gold just to get there quick enough.
Yeah. The issue that I see here right now, like what's Wham gonna do? He's gonna have to go for men-at-arms. Like you can't reasonably not make men-at-arms against this. If you go for cavalry still, you're gonna be finding yourself in a position where just a single unit type spearman that Vortex has access to in Feudal Age is gonna counter you out. Not just counter you out a little bit, the spearmen also get the bonus attack speed from the landmark from the Tower of Victory.
Yeah, so they're gonna have a little bit more efficacy. You're absolutely right. And for Wham, I mean,
potentially.
Uh-oh. That's
This
not
could be a
good if you're
very
the
early
deli.
decap. Definitely not. There aren't enough units there. Oh, Vortex though, he's diving. Wham. Okay, he notices. Puts the villagers inside the TC, but is gonna have to run with the other villagers there. That's a lot of vital time being forced out there now.
This could have been that Wham got a little bit too greedy here. You know, I mean, he tried to get to Castle Age as quickly as possible, but Vortex is just continuing that feudal onslaught. And this is something that we see a lot of when we see a player that's trying to fast castle, right? Maybe they get caught with their pants down, and that's exactly what's happening to Wham right now. Villagers hitting the deck. We have archers right in between the town center and the MIA, so if they wanted to build, those Tower of Victory archers are going to have something to say about it. Now Castle Age just hits, but Crackety, he's at 22 villagers. At what cost?
Yeah, the cost is very, very steep here. Sacred Side also didn't get decapped, and man, Vortex, he didn't even have Pierce armor, but it didn't matter. He just runs it in, and now, Wham, he's on 19 villagers. He's got almost only half the economy that Vortex has. What?
And I mean, don't get me wrong, military schools are great, and they give you free units. I don't think they're going to make up for the fact that you're at a 17 villager deficit 11 minutes in the game.
Yeah, I mean, this is brutal now. We're seeing some knights coming out from Wham here. Vizier Point coming in. Could at least get an additional military school in. No, he doesn't. He doesn't instead go for the imams. Imams make a lot of sense because now with the imams he might have a chance of at least getting some relics in order to mitigate this villager loss that he just suffered. Actually, he's not even left villagers. Some of those units that I counted were the traders that he has inside of his landmark. Oh, yeah. Imams might get sniped out there.
Oh, he doesn't even care.
Dying.
Yeah, those spearmen. Just because I mean, there weren't that many knights for the Ottomans, right? They didn't have that huge DPS unit. I mean, the Sipahi aren't going to be too much. The couple imams are going to end up going down, so we're not going to be able for them to see any religious artifacts. And Vortex is going to have to back up just a little bit, just because of the fact that he doesn't have the spearmen. But again, this is just delay. You know, keep getting those Ottoman villagers idle. Keep making sure you're producing a little bit of units, because if Wham's going to continue to make things like these knights, and he already has spearmen, he can sit in feudal, and he's fine with it.
Exactly. Oh, knight almost getting pinched there. It's going to take out one of the spears there. Yeah, this is overall not a fight that Wham can really win. What he's doing right now is he just wants to trade out units. I'm not sure if the trades are really that great for him right now. He doesn't have any blacksmith upgrades, and Vortex does have +1 pierce damage.
Yeah, I think for Wham, it's just because of his gold economy. I mean, he did have the trade network, so it helped him a little bit in the gold department. But you know, it wasn't enough to offset the fact he couldn't get villagers on gold. Now that he does, he might be able to get some of those upgrades out of his blacksmith, as we all know Wham has, being the Ottomans. But now transitioning to a couple men-at-arms, he did have a barracks, and I would imagine there are some military schools that are helping him out in that regard also. Now, once you get a mass of these, now when you're Vortex, you can think about, okay, maybe Castle Age.
There's the mangonel. I feel like it's kind of alone and scared at this moment in time. I can hear it rolling around.
Sacred Victory timer paused at 4 minutes.
This feels like it's gonna get... Yeah, Vortex about to click up to Castle Age as well, while having the military lead here, while having a gigantuan economy lead now. 23 villagers what he killed, and now Compound of Defender is gonna be coming in, and... Oh no. Oh no, not the mangonel, not like that. Villagers are getting pulled as well in order to try and repair, but they're getting sniped by the archers. Yeah, no more units left to repair now as well, and that is gonna be it. That's gonna have to be GG now. As soon as Castle Age comes in, Wham is gonna know for sure. Like, this isn't a weak Delhi situation right now. Delhi have this game firmly in their hands. Just a couple of men-at-arms trickling out here one by one. Pierce Armor at least has been reached now, has been researched. So they're taking a little bit less damage here from the Archer Fire. But as soon as the Age-Up comes in, it's gonna be done.
Yeah, I mean, it was all about that dive from Vortex. I mean, he had a decent amount of military units. He had about 20 to 25 military units. And just being able to sit in front of that town center, take a lot of idle time for Wham's villagers, kill a lot of villagers, 27 total. Wham's like, yeah, I can't compete with this. He had not enough villagers. I'm pretty sure for the Ottomans, he had about half compared to the Delhi Sultanate, and it wasn't going to happen. Whether he surrendered or otherwise, the game was ending in 4 minutes.
Yeah, and GG gets called there. The series is now even 2-2. So next one is going to be match point on Socotra.
Wow. Our final series of the day, ladies and gentlemen, going to be a 5-game barn burner. And it is going to be on Socotra. We do know what the last map is, and we talked about it a little bit before this game 4 started. We talked a little bit about the civs that are left. And I think Vortex has a pretty reasonable draft coming up here, and it will be the Rus as Vortex and Jeanne d'Arc as Wham, probably my 2 favorite civs, going to be going toe-to-toe. And we're going to see if Wham is going to be able to pull out that game 5, halt that momentum, maybe not the best matchup for him, or is Vortex going to shut this series down?
I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking, so you put the Kremlin in the middle next to the boar, and you see everything. You see absolutely everything. The line of sight on that Kremlin is going to be absolutely enormous. Wham, he's going to have Jeanne d'Arc. Is that going to be enough for him, though, to deal with this? There's less deer than on normal maps, I want to say, here on Socotra. So at least, like, there's not going to be that much bounty, but there are still wolves, that I know for certain. So, yeah, might be actually pretty decent here for Rus. I actually expected Rus to be picked on King of the Hill, but no, it's going to be here on Socotra.
It makes the boar that much more important, right? Because you talk about, I think on Socotra, the deer packs are in packs of 3 instead of 7, right? So not as much in bounty. And you talk about wolves, so that 75 coming from the boar is going to be really important. Might see a little bit more aggression, you know, maybe on a civilization that isn't necessarily going to be Jeanne d'Arc. As we all know, if you're going to play aggressive and feudal against Jeanne d'Arc, you better be taking good fights, because you have to offset the expected value of the XP from Jeanne d'Arc. So that's really, really important. And I think Rus has the ability to do that. I think there are civilizations that are mostly archer-based that do a good job against Jeanne d'Arc, because you're able to snipe before they can even earn XP in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Like, looking at this draft, I feel like Wham expected Rus to come in King of the Hill, and then Ottomans potentially on Socotra. Not Ottomans, Delhi potentially on Socotra, which I think is why he picked Ottomans on King of the Hill and then wanted to go for Jeanne potentially on Socotra, because Jeanne is very much favored against Delhi. But that is not going to be the case here. Instead, we're going to be seeing Rus on Socotra. And man, it's not a civilization that we see like that often here. I think Vortex kind of anticipated this and kind of read the situation perfectly, going for Rus now on Socotra, which arguably isn't that bad. Like, just thinking about it, having the Kremlin, having that huge defensive landmark opportunity on such a closed-off map like Socotra just gives you so much value.
Yeah, and although from Wham's point of view, I can see why he did that, right? Because you're like, oh, well, you know, there's not that much bounty, you know, is Rus really that good on Socotra, blah, blah, blah. If he does play Rus, maybe it's a good idea, you know, whatever. But I think the fact that he had both Jeanne d'Arc and French as the last 2 picks, it helped Vortex set everything up as to what he wanted to do. I mean, regardless of in this matchup for Vortex, if he picked Rus or he picked Mongols, I would say he's in a good spot regardless.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think it just kind of depends on, you know, for Vortex, what his comfortability is. You know, I mean, if Vortex is more comfortable on something like a Rus than a Mongols, then he would play Rus instead. But usually, if I'm playing Rus and I see Jeanne d'Arc around the other side, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, I'm wondering here what exactly JD's game plan is going to be, because you don't have a ton of raiding opportunities here on this map. Granted, at one point you will have to move out onto a deer, onto the boar. The thing is, Kremlin will be able to protect at least one of those spots, either the boar or a deer pack, for sure. And yeah, it's going to be tough. Like, JD is going to have to really choose her battles wisely there. One wrong move, if you end up under the Kremlin, the castle turrets upgrade that comes in for free is definitely going to make mincemeat out of your knights.
Yeah, it hits like a truck. You know, I mean, the Kremlin, if you're garrisoning 8 villagers around it, and I think what's really important too is for the Rus, if JD's trying to get offensive against you, right? And you're picking a different side from the Kremlin, you picked a good spot, you know, you're able to kind of disrupt some kind of enemy units or whatever, using the militia for the Rus as a Kremlin. Jeanne d'Arc doesn't get XP from that. So
yeah, that's true.
you know, you could use those, as units, and you don't feel bad losing them. I mean, granted, you usually don't feel bad anyway, because they only have a limited time frame, but you don't feel bad if you're losing units in front of Jeanne d'Arc, because you're offsetting a little bit just because of the fact the militia gives 0.
I think you want to go Archer-Jean in this matchup, actually, because you want to be able to snipe out some weak knights. That makes a lot of sense, and sure, you don't have like that big AoE, which will be useful when it comes to like spear wars if both players go for like knights and spears. But I think you can't really achieve a lot with knights and spears anyways when the Kremlin is up. The question is going to be, where is it going to be going up? And we'll see in just a little bit. Wham versus Vortex here on Cotra. And what do we have here? It's going to be an early board play from Wham. And dude, this actually makes a ton of sense. You tank that up a little bit with the scout. Now you can tank with JD. JD has a ton of health. You get an outpost up here in the middle, forward there. You're going to make sure that your opponent can't go for the Kremlin on the board. And there is only one board, by the way. And it's gone. Wham took it.
It's really good. I really like that play. Yeah.
Pretty good idea.
Yeah. You get Jeanne d'Arc a little XP, make sure Rus doesn't get the 75 bounty. You know, they're going to be trying to get some scraps over here with some of these deer packs, which could be beneficial for you as well. Yeah, this is pretty good. I'm thoroughly impressed by Wham right now.
Some very good, like, on-the-fly decision-making here from him. Question's going to be, where's he going to put his H up then? Because Jean is now very far forward. Is he going to pull Jean all the way back then? Second scout for Vortex, but overall, I don't think the bounty is going to be that amazing here for him. I think maybe he gets to, like, 200. I don't think he's got. Actually, that's a lot of wolves. That's a lot of wolves. That's a lot of wolves. There's 4 wolves on one screen. 5 wolves on one screen. All right, get out of here. Okay, never mind. Vortex is gonna reach 250 easily. No two ways about it.
Oh my God, there's a whole pack of them. Usually wolves travel in packs, so I guess I kind of get it. You know, with 5 of them and being there around that sacred site. So now, yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, with 5.
Another wolf.
Oh my God.
And another wolf. And another wolf.
Oh my God. This is unbelievable. You know, those are pretty expensive pelts there, my friend. I was gonna be close to 300.
It's gonna be absolutely huge here for Vortex. He's gonna get so much gold out of that one. And because Wham only went for a single scout, he doesn't really have any means to deny that. Yeah, just looking at Vortex's gold right now, he's already got like 300 gold, and Kremlin is going to be coming in slightly forward. And actually, the Kremlin is in a position to protect any food resources at all. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird Kremlin spot. You know, I would think maybe a little bit more. I don't know if I'm in a place to even talk about Kremlin placement. If you watch my Rus gameplay, but on the western side, there's some deer packs that are there. There's some gold that could be relatively safe for you. You know, being at that Kremlin a little bit forward, yeah, it gets some of that wood line, which is beneficial. But you could really make kind of a proxy base over here with that Kremlin if you were going to try to take down some of the gold and whatever. But because Vortex put it there, you know, by the stone, by the wood, is he thinking more 2TC gameplay like stereotypical Rus?
I would assume so. I would assume that he just goes 2TC and tries to like take the deer. I'm not sure if I like that though. I'm not sure if I like the position that he puts himself in with that. I'm gonna say I'm not an immediate fan of that because the Kremlin likely isn't gonna be in range of that second TC as well. and you're kind of putting a target on yourself when you're playing against Jean like that, because that second TC is going to get targeted 100%.
Oh yeah, and I mean for Roost, they usually go more in the greedy sense of trying to get some of those, right? That School of Cavalry, you did talk about Jean walking all the way back. Didn't go all the way back, but at least was able to get a couple of them. I think those wolves are all gone. Wham did snipe one or two of them. Yet. Yeah, I thought he was going to be at like 300.
Wham must have denied just the crucial amount of wolves in order to stop Vortex from reaching that 250 mark. All right.
Yeah, I think it was all calculated. Look at what Wham's doing as far as his macro. He's got 5 on stone. It looks like he's going to meet him in 2 town center land.
Okay. Sure. Why? I feel like
I don't know,
you're already in a bad matchup, right? Like, you're already in a bad matchup. You might as well try and go for an all-in, because the way Vortex has placed his landmark, it's not going to protect the second TC. So the second TC is going to stand by itself, and now you're going to invest 700 resources into an additional TC instead of like 3 additional knights.
Yeah, I mean, it seems kind of, especially you're exactly right with that Kremlin placement. I mean, the resources for that second town center are safe, but it's all about actually getting up and where it's going to go, you know, as you alluded to before. It looks like Wham, again, we'll be meeting him in a 2 TC land, and, you know, a stereotypical, these are some of the French builds of old. You're getting enough so you get one knight to try to harass, and then able to do something afterward. That boar still relatively safe. Jean d'Arc going to come back and get some of that boar. Maybe we'll see in that level 2. Maybe we'll see some archer. Maybe we'll see some micro play out of Wham, which ends up obviously always going well. And it looks like she's migrating to try to figure out where to go. And for Vortex getting the second town center, maybe Wham has a presence of mind to think, hey, if I have Jean d'Arc and she's an archer, and Vortex is going for a pretty much naked second town center with the use of a couple Kremlin militia, which are going to the boar, not to protect the second town center. Maybe you could use Jean d'Arc as an archer at a Royal Knight to try to take him down.
Nice body blocking, though, from Wham. But the militia, they're a little bit faster even than wheelbarrow villagers. And I think, yeah, that villager is going to go down.
Yeah, it is. That -1 villager is pretty important for Jean d'Arc because they don't get that buff like the French does. You know, and trying to get that increased villager production speed. That second town center, oh my god, that is one of the safest Roost second town centers I've ever seen in my life. Villager ends up going down, evening the worker kill count. So not going on a food resource in particular. He's just trying to shore up his goal.
Vortex killed 2. Vortex actually killed 2.
Unbelievable.
He killed another one under a TC.
2 villagers. That's so cost effective. For how much those gremlins are, that's huge.
Absolutely is. And now Wham is going to be moving out. The one thing that's concerning here for sure is Wham's second TC is going to protect food. Vortex isn't.
Right. Yeah, and, you know, I mean, we see what Vortex is doing on the western side of his base, or the southwestern side of the map. He's going for a deer pack, and he's going to have to do things like get a wooden fortress or something like that. I mean, these knights, they're probably not going to stop being Jean d'Arc. I mean, having the ability to consecrate something like a School of Cavalry, the 100 or the 140 food, excuse me, ends up becoming anywhere between 100 to 105. It just means you're going to be able to see more of it. And plus, with the macro build early, you might be able to get more knights as Jean d'Arc as compared to a Roost player.
I don't think this is going to come into play, but if Wham were to make a dock, he could actually deny the gold from Vortex with the Spriggle chip, and there wouldn't be anything that Vortex could do because his second TC doesn't actually have enough range to outrange the Spriggle chip.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I'm wondering if Wham ends up picking that up a little bit later into the game. I mean, he's not thinking about a dock right now, per se.
I don't think it's going to happen. It's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Would be cool, though. Some nice walls coming out here. I think walls on this map are just overall very, very underrated. Like, having a wall here on this map when it's already like this small, just making it even harder for your opponent to really, like, for one, get scouting information, but also really harass you on sides, is so valuable. We do have JD running in now. Did she get another kill there? She did fire off a shot, doesn't get the kill. There we go. This one's gonna go down though. Unless line of sight is gonna be playing a little bit funky there.
How how annoying is that for Vortex though? I mean, yeah.
What did the villager just teleport over the wall? All right.
It's game 5. It's the 4th series. There's gonna be some shenanigans. Ru's finally getting a knight out there. Vortex is gonna be able to make quick work of that villager. That's another villager. End up going down. That's 3 total for Vortex. And now, based on the villager count, is 37 to 32. And I guess my question for you, Crackety, for Jean d'Arc, it's because of your ability to consecrate. Is it okay to be at a little bit of a villager deficit?
I want to say in theory, yes, right? Like you save up a lot of resources, and if you look at the resources, Wham is going to be able to click up way ahead of Vortex here. And we do actually see the dock coming in from Vortex. So he's thought of it. And it makes a lot of sense, but in theory, it's not going to be the greatest play because Wham has another gold mine that's secured with the second TC and walls.
Yeah, I really like the play, though, trying to get a little cheeky with it. You know, you could, even for the fact that you do have Navy, and you do have an archer ship, or you get a Springald ship, maybe you want to take fights closer to the shore. You know, it makes the Cotra, that shoreline ends up becoming even smaller circumferentially just because of the amount of Navy that ends up being there. So we'll have to see. It looks like some night-on-night action might end up transpiring over there on the western side, or the eastern side, excuse me, and Vortex is going to have to vacate that area so that wall goes up. This boar, I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved this play. Wham's going to do a little bit of hokey pokey outside that gate just to make sure his villagers end up being safe, but this boar play in the beginning, I feel like it really set the tone for him, and I'm really liking
the scout. The Knight focus the scout, and yeah, that's a fight that Wham is gonna lose now. Guildhall is gonna be coming in though. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Doesn't feel great. Does not feel great at all.
No,
that's gonna be another villager down. Yeah.
Oh, there's a nice little +7. That's pretty good. Jean d'Arc did get the +25 from the boar, but just getting a little bit of extra from some of these knights.
Only 450 more experience to go.
Hey, she gets passive XP. Takes a little bit of time, but she'll get there.
0.5 per second, yeah.
And look at where Wham positions Jean d'Arc as soon as Guildhall gets made. Right on that sacred site, so you're gonna see that one hit for another +50. That's really good Jean d'Arc XP. Now that we're seeing
have her on the landmark, right? Because of the bonus building speed.
Yeah, you know, I don't really see that too often, to be honest with you. I mean, you usually see them trying to get sacred sites for that little bit of a gold trickle, but absolutely right. There could be a potential for that. Wham will be able to get the Knight upgrade probably as soon as possible. Vortex just continuing to push in, continuing to be aggressive. You can see that he has Knights in the queue, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down. He pulled his Kremlin Gremlins as well. Even though they're still in feudal age, they're going to be able to pack a punch pretty considerably against some of these Knights, and he might be able to push a little forward and get Wham caught while he made Guildhall. It just means he doesn't have as many units.
Yeah, Wham's going to have to pull back here. At least going to have to evacuate some of his villagers. Lots of villagers inside the TC right now. 7 in there. And a lot more on the run. Wham is going to spot those out. Archer ship is going to try and get some cheeky shots in there as well. Doesn't end up getting them. Veterancy on the Knights has just come in. Additional stable is going up. And now the main TC is going to help. And yeah, Wham should be able to repel that for the time being. That mining camp is brave.
Yeah,
I don't think you should go for that if your opponent has water.
Oh,
Knights.
More villagers are going to end up going down. Only 7 in that spot. So those 3 or 4 that are on the deer, if Vortex sees it, doesn't look like he does. Ends up vacating a little bit the south. Economic count for Roost, though, still a little bit better. 57 to 47. You can see the changes in economy. And I think what I really liked for Vortex using those militia is the only thing it did was buy him time, right? He's trying to macro to castle. He wasn't anywhere near it. But now that he created and made some initiative and had Wham fighting all the way in the back of his base, it just means Vortex can get to Castle Age and might be able to get it a little more smoothly.
Second sacred site is not getting captured by JD. Standing in the middle for the time being, and we are seeing a little switch up into Arbaletria now.
And I think
when
you're playing against a Knight civilization like Rus, I mean, obviously some Arbaletria are really going to help you out to try to snipe them out. I'm curious to see what Vortex goes afterward. I mean, he's adding some Spearmen, which is going to help him, you know, to try to stop some of these Night Raids. Number one, it might help him against Arbaletri, but with Gambesons, it's going to be very difficult. That high trade house, I'm curious to see. What do you think he goes in Castle?
I mean, probably also has to go for crossbows, right? Like, you can't just let those Arbaletri be on their own. You need crossbows to play against that as well. Crossbows, some siege. Looks like Wham tried to gather up some gold there. Mining camp did get built, but yeah, it will have to go on over to that side. Something just got placed by Vortex next to the wall. I think it's probably an outpost. Spearman means that Vortex Wham isn't going to really be able to take these fights now, even though Castle Age only has just come in for Vortex. He's also already started doing a little bit of a farm transition here.
Yeah, you know,
Trade house is going to be like getting in. I'm gonna guess 120.
Oh, that's a good guess. I'd guess maybe I would have said 130. So you're pretty much on track. But I'll say just because he hit 250 bounty, I'll say it's a $136.
Well, we're seeing a little bit, but for the time being, Vortex, he's knocking on the front door. Siege Workshop actually has been put down by Wham, but there's no siege on the horizon yet. Knights on Knights trading out. Veterancy Royal Knights, but Wham, he's trying to protect his Arbaletri, and Vortex is just gunning it for him.
Yeah, he was trying to protect these Arbaletri. He's using the choke points here on the eastern side and the western side, but Wham just doesn't have enough units. Jeanne d'Arc is going absolutely down. My baby girl, that's number one. That Jeanne d'Arc is going to be hitting the deck. We'll take 250 gold to get her back. I'm curious to see if he actually ends up buying, but there's a lot of resources.
She's about to level up. He has to buy her back. She's about to level up.
But he's
looking at it though.
But that's the thing, Craig. He needs units, right? He doesn't want to use the gold to try to buy her back. He just wants to get as many units as possible.
He needs her. Like, she's units. She is units. But at the same time, from the other side, villagers went down. Wham just lost another 9 villagers there. And he's struggling. He is struggling heavily when it comes to dealing with this aggression. The militia that just popped out. Still a lot more knights in queue. And where's Jeanne? Jeanne is needed right now. There she is. Jeanne is coming out. Just needs like one more kill in order to be able to level up. There we go. Level up should be coming in now. And there we go. Jeanne has leveled up. Needs to summon units now. Gets a nice little shot in there. Villagers, they're going to have to evacuate. Champions are coming in. It's gonna be enough though, Jeanne! She's standing still! Gets taken down! Man at Arms doing a great job against the Spearman at the very least. And Arbaletri able to pick off reinforcements there for the time being. But yeah, those are very heavy losses. The idle time, just the idle time itself, just gets so much value in here right now.
Yeah, that was, I mean, this guild hall, it's sitting on a lot of food, which is great. You might want to pull that out at some point, but it just means you can't pull it out to try to get to Imperial. But I think for Wham, Imperial is a very distant memory for him right now. He's trying to use those champions to try to get rid of some of these spearmen, but just for the sheer mobility of it, spearmen are becoming more of a raiding unit than anything else. A lot of idle villagers, economic count 82 to 53. And for Vortex, it's only going to keep going up as long as he keeps this pressure. The military count isn't that much for Vortex. It's only 5 to 4. But there's one player that can continue to make military, and there's one they can't.
At least for the foreseeable future. Behind this as well, like Vortex, he does have the farm transition. He does have the farm transition. He's in a very stable position at the moment. We look at the overall resource income. He's sitting at like almost 3k resources per minute. Meanwhile, Wham, he's scrambling to get the 1k.
Yeah, and I mean, food is always going to be his problem, right? There's no farm transition at all. Jeanne d'Arc suffers the same thing that French does, right? There's a couple berries patches over here on the western side. I guess if you were to have some food or some Gaia food resources, that's fine, but you know, it's kind of the worst case situation. And it's not exactly defensible. You don't have that town center to help you out. It's not like Wham has extra villagers to try to get a keep going or, you know, outposts with stone upgrades or any of that kind of stuff. So Wooden Fortress on that eastern side for Vortex, just going to try to make sure that he's going to be able to see everything that Jean d'Arc ends up doing, trying to make units. But you saw that military count. It was 5-5, 5-4. The reproducibility of the Ruse player. Now it's 26-10.
Jean at least is making a comeback, but there's a lot resting on her shoulders right now. I'm not sure if she can really carry this game now in this current state. Wham, he's got a single relic, and looks like he might be able to defend this one relic from the warrior monk that's coming out. That's gonna help out at least a little bit.
Oh, look at this switch from Vortex. We're not
That's a
seeing
lot of
knights
units.
anymore. Yeah, but we're not seeing knights anymore. We're seeing horsemen. So Jean d'Arc not going to be able to get those plus 24 out of those knights. And just because Wham is consistently making Arbaletrie, he's going to see all these horsemen and he's going to be like, yeah, I got nothing for this.
Indeed, he doesn't have absolutely nothing to really answer to that. Horseman, they're just going to immediately run onto the Arbaletria, and not much that Wham can really do about that. Doesn't have +1 damage upgraded yet. And the perfects around the Arbaletria all going down. Wham, I don't think he can hold that. Now the Mangonel is coming in as well. Villagers running for their lives, getting slaughtered left, right, front, and center. And the entire base from Wham is just getting absolutely swamped right now by the melee units from Vortex. And he doesn't have any place to enter. The bell gets rung!
I mean, he's gonna,
For how long?
he's gonna need more than a bell, my friend. I think I heard Jean d'Arc go off again in the distance, and I'm just waiting for that GG to be called. More villagers going down. There's almost 40 worker kills, and in a knockdown, drag out 5-game series. Vortex, playing as the Ruse, takes down that pivotal Game 5, sending Wham packing. So Vortex, congratulations for making it to the semifinals. Honestly, Wham, congratulations for putting on one hell of a series.
Oh man, and getting confirmation from production, there was 2.5k food in the guild hall at the end of that game. But can the food really save you there? Maybe, but he just didn't have the other resource, the production buildings necessary in order to get an army that can really deal with what Vortex had. Probably was just banking on an Imperial Age, but couldn't quite get it in the end. GG gets called, and Vortex, he's gonna go, as you said, over to the semifinals. I believe if the bracket. Okay.
The bracket is going to stick him on the side of Marine Lord, and the pattern continues on. We talked about it before we even got into this, that every time they matched up, the other person takes the result, and we continue that pattern now. But what an insane turn of events from group stage end now to heading into quarterfinals here, Tim, because when we have a look at that bracket, what we're going to see is something that looks reminiscent of, I want to see like a 2022 Final Four, right? Lucifron and Vortex, a lot of questions going into these playoffs. They have turned up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, for Vortex and Lucifron, like, this is the tournament for them. You know, they're playing on water. They're going to be great in terms of micro, and you saw that through most of them. And now we can see our semifinal brackets here. Marine Lord and Vortex in the semifinals. Beastie and Lucifron in the semifinals. I mean, honestly, you know, we saw how these played out. You know, we saw these played out today with Wham and Vortex, Puppy Paw and Lucifron. Arguably, in my opinion, probably two of the best series that I've seen on EGC in quite some time. You know, and they could have gone either way. You know, if we played those series again tomorrow, maybe we have different stories, right? But for Vortex and Lucifron, they ended up becoming superior. And, you know, I get it. I get why this is the result. And I got to give it up to Vortex and Lucifron. They played lights out today.
And, you know, I think the interesting thing here, Crackety, is maybe the Lucifron series, you put it down more just water micro gods that they are on these water and water hybrid maps. This one, to me, felt a bit different. I actually think that game 4 was the spicy detail. Vortex, it felt like a complete bait and switch that threw the rest of this series off for Wham.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it a little bit. I believe that Wham really anticipated Roos to be picked on King of the Hill. Instead, getting the Deli in on King of the Hill means that Socotra, Jean has to face off against Roos, because realistically, it wasn't going to be French, to be fair there. And this just suddenly just takes the script and throws it out the window, because Jean, in theory, is favored up against the Deli, that Deli mass just feeding Jean's experience bar. And Ottomans can put up a decent fight against the Roos. But in this one situation here, Vortex realizing that and picking Dally on King of the Hill and actually taking the victory there as well.
And not just that, kind of showing us how busted Cotra can actually be for Roos. I mean, Tim, I know you're a follower of the way of the Roos boys, but maybe Bounty needs to be tuned back a little bit on this particular map?
No.
You want more?
It seemed fine.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, we got the 4 boars, right? Yeah, and then maybe like 20 wolves. Bring the dire wolf mod in. Like, why stop?
Yeah. I want to be as many wolves as trees. How about that?
As long as they just come straight for your base like a zombie apocalypse, I'm game for that. Right? All of a sudden, we're not AoE4 anymore. They are billions. But no, an incredible day of Age of Empires 4 action. I think, 1 or 2 of the series, maybe they had a little bit of a stompy feel to them. But overall, I think at the end of the day, what we kind of saw here is how tight the top players still are, right? I think going into this crackly, a lot of people genuinely thought Puppy Paw and Wham were podium or borderline podium. Instead, the storyline switches to the old school bros here completely.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest, like I didn't really expect it. I was doubting a little bit when it comes to the practice that Vortex and Lucifron have been putting in. But maybe they thought, okay, we made it into playoffs. Maybe let's put in a couple of extra hours, and they did go for that practice, and it seemingly has paid off big time here for them. Like Wham and Puppy Paw getting taken out both by the Spanish brothers here. Not something that many of us would have expected, me included.
Yeah, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on the map pool, right? Like we talked about a little bit, but now that we've had time to kind of marinate on it, we've only got 1 weekend left next weekend where we'll crown a champion of Master of Realms. How are you feeling about the format, Tim? Right? Are you in love with Archipelago? We had Winston yesterday, and I think Lido were both nerdgasming about how much they love this map.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I, I don't know if I'm gonna gasm in any kind of particular area, but I mean, this is different. This is when we're taking a look at the map pool here. We can say, oh, we lost Killer Pigeon. That's okay. He's here.
I am the maps now. I'm migration. Pick me.
But taking a look, I mean, at all of these maps and having the choices that you have, it just means every game is different, right? And that's what we want to see. There's a lot of the times we play mostly more land maps in here, and I see people being like, "Oh, water, maybe you don't like to." Oh, there he is. You don't like to play water or anything like that. Every game, and we're seeing civilizations that don't normally get picked in bans. We're seeing ones get banned that usually get picked, right? So it's a little change of pace, and it's a breath of fresh air. This tournament has been an absolute blast to cast today. And I appreciate EGC for letting me on here saying dumb things to a couple thousand people.
I appreciate them getting me off that screen. Being migration, never getting picked was giving me flashbacks of me in dodgeball class. But no, that Crackety, your perspective on this as well. I mean, this is opportunity to maybe flame Cow's Water Drake. I'm seeing that's not getting picked up too much. Are there any maps here that you really want to see more of?
I really enjoyed moving out so far. Moving out just I guess maybe not for the players, but as a viewer and as a caster, moving out has been nothing but entertaining. Sometimes water maps they can be a little bit, I want to say, boring because there's like 4 or 5 viable civilizations, and all the other 11, 12 civilizations just kind of like have to sit on the sidelines and just watch the top civs duke it out there. But moving out just kind of takes that script and throws it out the window because suddenly we see civilizations like Ayubits, we see civilizations like Abbasid, and overall just some really, really cool and interesting games coming out there on that map. Japanese also finding a value, and suddenly it's not just like 4 or 5 civilizations, suddenly it's like 6, 7 civilizations because it's just such a chaotic factor. And I want to say, like, when it comes to water maps, moving out is probably my favorite at the moment of the bunch, even though it's in the chaos category.
I wish they were all chaos category. That I think that's what we've been learning here. It's a lot of chaos and anarchy, but maybe some order starting to return. The meta is starting to iron out, but I'm hoping there's still some secrets yet to be revealed here in Master of Realms. Now, me being dragged off the screen was actually perfect because someone asked earlier, how long have I got to use that code? You need to start using that code now, okay? It disappears at the end of the tournament, so take advantage of the extra 4 months while you can to let Surfshark know that you want them back when it's time to ring that bell for Red Bull Wallalol. But boys, it has been an absolute pleasure. Fantastic casting out of you as usual. But I think it's time to bring it to a close. So we're going to get ready to round out with the credits. But a reminder that we still have one more weekend of top-tier Age of Empires 4 action. By this time, next weekend, we are likely to have crowned our Master of Realms champion, but so many stories still to be told as we have our top 4. But will it be Marine Lord? Will it be Vortex? Will it be Beastie? Or will it be Lucifron that claims that championship role? There's only one way to find out. We'll see you all next weekend when we decide the king, the master, the emperor of all realms.